Greetings. I'm your host, Jason Miles, here for another episode of This is Revolution podcast. If you're new to the channel, thank you so much for taking the time to check us out. If you are a returning listener, subscriber, or one of our very valued patrons, thank you so much for tuning in. I want to thank all of the good people that took time out of their day and evenings to be a part of our weekly shows here at TIR. We kicked off the week with Deep State Cuba and Mean Jean Bajlan giving us a proper diagnosis on the What Fresh Hell series that we have here on the situation in Iran. Tuesday, we were joined by journalist, author, and professor Nolan Higdon, and we discussed the slow erosion of higher education. Wednesday, Mac was back for more Beyond the Red Zone insanity. And as promised, we did discuss World Cup and billionaire shenanigans in sports. Probably a little longer than most people would have thought we would before we descended into ridiculousness. Thursday, JG Michael joined me for episode 10 of Dudes in the Cheap Seats. In this particular episode, we took a break from our usual horror-themed shows and went on to discuss the 1983 teen comedy / boob fest Private School, starring Brenda Russell and Phoebe Cates. After the main show, we did watch the movie with patrons and paid YouTube subscribers, and I was shocked you guys actually dug it. We had a really fun post-movie discussion after the show as well, which was quite reassuring for JG because he was sure that this episode was going to be a trip to cancellation station for us. Boy, was he wrong. That being said, this show today, from what we were saying in the virtual green room, a little worried. A little worried for this one to get clipped. But at TIR, we pride ourselves in not churning out disposable content. We try to create programming that is thoughtful, challenging, political, cultural, historical, reverent, and at times downright chaotic in what we hope is in the best way possible. We cover the stories and ideas that matter, not always the ones that trend. We bring you conversations rooted in analysis, solidarity, and intellectual curiosity. And we do it without selling out to the algorithm and without trying to become another outrage factory. But none of this happens without you, the patrons, the supporters, the people who tune in, share, argue, question, and help keep this show alive. It is your contributions, large and small, that make TIR possible. So if you do enjoy what we do here on this show, then consider becoming a patron or a paid YouTube subscriber for as little as $3 a month or a one-time payment of $30 for the year. You can have access to our movie nights, champagne rooms, Crisis Papers, our new weekly newsletter, and you get the satisfaction of knowing that your small donation is a major part of keeping TIR on the air. Now, let's talk a little bit about race in the UK and Brexit. 10 years ago, Brexit was sold as a restoration project, take back control, reclaim sovereignty, reassert national identity. To many who voted leave, it wasn't necessarily a vote for hatred. It was frustration with stagnation, with distant bureaucracies, with a political class that seemed to speak to managerial cliches while communities hollowed out around them. But politics has a way of transforming legitimate grievances into something darker. And 10 years later, Britain finds itself asking uncomfortable questions. How did a country that once sold itself as multicultural and cosmopolitan arrive at scenes of anti-immigrant violence, racial tensions, and outbreaks of xenophobic fury? Why does public conversation increasingly sound like migration is not a policy issue, but an existential threat? And why does every crisis, housing, wages, healthcare, social cohesion, seem to eventually circle back to borders? From racial tensions and sectarian anxieties in Northern Ireland to anti-immigrant mobilizations across England, to an atmosphere where hostility toward the foreigner increasingly feels normalized rather than shocking. The question hanging over Britain is difficult but unavoidable. Did Brexit create this moment, or did Brexit reveal it? Because Brexit didn't invent British nationalism, it didn't invent anti-immigrant politics. Britain has centuries of imperial history, contested identities, racial hierarchies, and unresolved questions about who belongs and who gets to define the nation. The hostility did not arrive in 2016, but Brexit may have done something else. It may have changed the boundaries of acceptable public speech. Ideas that once existed at the margins entered the mainstream. Political incentives shifted. The language of control sovereignty, and cultural protection and invasion became common currency across party lines. What once sounded extreme could suddenly sound pragmatic. And then came the paradox. The promises of economic renewal never fully arrived. Growth has lagged. Public services remain strained. Communities still felt abandoned, but instead of directing anger upwards towards institutions, finance, and austerity, political energy often moved laterally towards immigrants, refugees. Now, with Keir Starmer stepping aside and British politics entering another uncertain chapter, Britain arrives at a strange anniversary. 10 years after Brexit, the question isn't whether Britain left Europe. The question is what Britain became afterwards. So today we ask, was Brexit the cause of Britain's racial tensions or merely the permission structure that allowed them to surface? What responsibility do politicians and media institutions and economic conditions share? And if nationalism can mobilize a country, can it also govern one? 10 years later, Britain may still be searching for what exactly it thought it was taking back control of. Now, to have this conversation, I have my homie, my dog, the man of the Mau Mau Hour, the Prince of Miami. He is the Pascal Robert.
Peace and greetings to the chat. Peace and greetings to the audience. Peace and greetings, Jason Miles, on this cheery subject.
Oh my goodness. This is I'm going to be definitely in the background for this one. Gene Bajlan has got his setting like Darth Vader with no light whatsoever, so this should be fun. The person that put this show together is TIR Next Gen host. He was the first Next Gen TIR member. He is the Stefan Bertram Lee.
Hello. It's very, very hot here. I don't know if you guys have seen the air conditioning discourse versus European heat wave discourse and American blah, blah, blah heat wave stuff. But it is a good example because it's like maybe like 24 degrees outside at the moment. And it's 29 in my kitchen and it's hotter in my room.
I was gonna say there's no AC, so
yeah, but it's not just no AC, but houses that have been designed to trap heat as well as they can.
Because it's always so cold.
Yeah.
There's parts of the United States like that. The Northwest region.
I think like Seattle and stuff has basically the same climate as England does.
Very similar. That when they have heat waves where it gets like for our temperatures like 84. Which isn't that hot. It's every house is a sauna and people are complaining. It's quite the opposite of how Pascal lives his air conditioned life in Florida.
Yes, y'all.
And he is the man that a lot of you people love to hear his analysis. But today, buckle up for this one. Please welcome everyone's favorite British American professor, me, Gene Bajlan.
Hello, everybody. How are you doing?
Why is your setting so ominous, Gene?
It's not ominous. I know why you brought me on today. You're trying to bait me into saying the N-word, but I'm not going to do it.
No. To introduce Jason to new British slurs you've never even heard of.
I figured we'd have to have you on because how can we talk about racism in Britain without having a person that literally has dealt with racism in Britain, who's been the victim of growing up, and another person that I'm sure has been called not nice black words by British people, our favorite journalist, Ralph Leonard.
Thank you. I don't have an AC, but I've got a fan to my left, though.
I do have a fan.
So,
it can blow hot air at your face.
Yeah. Yes.
It's brutal when the weather gets over 20 degrees in England because all the houses are built to retain heat. It becomes absolutely unbearable. So, people don't have AC, so kind of screwed. Like my parents are cooking at home in their place. My brother is even worse because he's in the middle of Leeds in one of these old terrace houses, like 3-4 terrace houses, like slowly getting barbecued at the top of his house. So it's brutal. Here, it's probably been hot. Like Missouri has been pretty unbearable over the last couple of weeks because you'll have like a massive rainstorm and then it will hit like 25 degrees. So you go outside and you turn into a steam bun. So
we had a massive thunderstorm yesterday, which woke me up. And then it was just all blazing sun the rest of the day.
Jason really
arranged a proper British podcast today because he's brought us on to talk about something serious. Normally we want to talk about the fucking weather.
That's true.
Well, let me ask the first question. I'll move out of the way. How should we understand the relationship between nationalism and multiculturalism in modern Britain? And are these necessarily in conflict? And have politicians framed it that way?
I'm very interested in what Gene and Ralph are going to say about this because I was thinking about this and I feel like Britain is not a multicultural nation at all. Like it's just not a thing. Like I think maybe that's like been something that's been said by people or there's been a perception of it, but I don't think it's true at all. I think there's kind of mainstream British culture and kind of adornments of it where like it takes up particular features from other cultures and uses them. But I don't think there's multiculturalism in Britain. There's just one major dominant culture. And then there are various like small kind of ghetto cultures which exist alienated from the rest of mainstream British culture. And I think a larger part of that is because kind of basically all the non-white people in Britain are descended from like post-colonial people whose cultures were already massively influenced by British culture. And so they come to Britain, regardless of whether they're from the metropole or not, if they have any family from the metropole, already partially anglicized and it was partially made British. I'm very interested in what Gene and Ralph have to say.
Gene, what say you?
I mean, I would largely agree with that assessment. So many, I mean, because of the nature of immigration into Britain, as Stefan says, a lot of those people, especially upper and middle class workers who came to work in the NHS, which was a huge number of people like my dad, they all came through to some degree, anglicized system. Like my dad, Iraq was a British mandate for a long time, had English education. And when he went to Baghdad University to study medicine before Arabization, their curriculum was all University of Edinburgh curriculum. And Iraq is a kind of is one of the less anglicized. But when you're talking about Indians, Pakistanis, especially the worst minority in Britain, which is African Asians, you know, people like
the worst minority in
the worst, but they're the most
they're basic Rhodesians.
Yeah, basically brown Rhodesians, right? So a lot of these people are actually, for example, a lot more familiar, or that generation is a lot more familiar with like the touchstones of quote unquote British culture. They were educated in British system. Like someone like Freddie Mercury, right? Went to an Indian boarding school that taught a British curriculum and became obsessed with, fucking what's
British
his name?
Pop culture.
Yeah, British pop culture and all that kind of stuff. So I would. There is ghettoized communities to a certain degree, but there's like, you know, as my mum made the joke, she was like, because my mum grew up in the 70s, she goes, frankly, those grooming gangs, the quote unquote Muslim grooming gangs. She was like, yeah, if you've been in the 70s, it just means they've all assimilated, because like that was, there were pervs, always pervs, like lurking around the school in gangs trying to get the girls to shag them around the back of the bike sheds. Like, so there is, so like, what do people mean by multiculturalism? I don't really know. I think Britain has a pretty dominant culture. I mean, just watch a really good example is the movie Four Lions, where they have the Islamic terrorists, but they're all just regular English people who have who like Rubadini Rapids and Alton Towers and the same crap as everybody else. And even when, you know, so like you end up with like, yeah, you have the quote unquote generic ethnic group in the country. It's like, we're not like the British because we love our families. We have food. We're so spicy. It's like this
is also what Northern English people say about Southern English people.
Yeah, they're not friendly.
English people and
or what Irish people say about English people.
Exactly. So, I mean, I would agree. Like the concept of multiculturalism, I don't even know what. Maybe in parts of London, that might be the case where you have like newer waves of immigration from people who didn't come from the British Empire and stuff like that. Maybe, I don't know, but like there's always a kind of integrated general culture in the country.
Isn't the concept of multiculturalism intentionally vague, though, as it stands on its own? I mean, I grew up in New York City. People will say New York is a multicultural city. I mean, there are a variety of cultures that exist in New York City, but the dominant normative culture is still, American English. You have Christian education, even though you may have Muslims or Hindus or other religions there. But when we talk about these major metropoles that were colonial powers or imperial powers that are flooded with diverse populations from various parts of the global South, does the presence of multiple cultures actually mean multiculturalism? I think so. I think what Stefan and Gina are saying is that yes, they are agreeing that there is a presence of multiple cultures in Great Britain, but it's not necessarily leading to a fusion of a variety of cultural norms that are threatening the fabric of British society. Now that's what they're telling. That's what Gene and Stefan are saying. But my retort to that would be, if that is the case, then why do we have people like Tommy Robbins and Nigel Farage and all of these other British wankers who are arguing that the presence of all of these, wogs, if you will, is diluting our culture? They're threatening what the essence of being British is. Why do they feel so? Or is it simply about political economy that they feel that the presence of these immigrants here are challenging their ability to find work and housing, or their ability to live off state funding? What do you guys think?
Ralph, you want to respond? You haven't spoken yet.
First of all, I find it's always funny when North Americans try to say British swear words. It's like when Canadians try to say bollocks. Like that. But in any case, back in the day, there used to be a phrase said amongst like far right types. They used to go like, "There ain't no black in the Union Jack," right? And that was to say that they were positing a very racialized vision of British nationality, and that black people could not be said to be British because they were black, right? And they were outside the imagined community that they thought of as Britain. And I think, when you talk about multiculturalism and British nationalism, I think certainly since the 90s, that kind of perception has changed, because during the Blair years, there was the whole Cool Britannia wave, which was, try to make the Union Jack seem cool and chic and hip, and that's where, this sort of redefinition of Britishness came in, that it could soak in different influences. And while there are different variations like British Asian culture or Black British culture, there were variations of the same dominant culture. It wasn't like some kind of alien deviation you're talking about. It's there's like a core, and then there's different variations which come from different historical, stories. Or like, Stuart Hall liked to say, let's not talk about roots with two double O's, T and an S. Let's talk about roots, ROUTES, because we all come from different histories, different backgrounds, even though we're part of the same society. So I think that's what, if you will, the Steelman version of multiculturalism kind of means. And obviously after 9/11, that this idea of multiculturalism became more problematized, because it seemed like because within our society there were people who were born and raised within it, who then would feel more sympathy with, the black flag of Al Qaeda or ISIS than to their own nation. Like, why would they feel more affinity with some kind of abstract, borderless ideology, and then go on to kill people who were their compatriots. So that's where this kind of, I think, this argument of multiculturalism really begins and starts. And obviously, there's a kind of a bit of a history behind it as well, because even in the 80s and the 90s, you had these arguments about multiculturalism in schools, you know, and political correctness gone mad, that sort of thing. Yeah.
I mean, Gene, for someone that grew up in the UK, how have you seen these things play out over time from when you were a young person in, let's say, high school to, you know, going back a couple years ago to visit your home? Oh, you're muted, Gene. You got to unmute yourself.
I did it.
Oh, you muted me. Okay. I mean, British culture, or what it is like, British mainstream culture has evolved over time, right? And, you know, it's integrated elements of sort of the new communities that have come in over time. So obviously there's been change. But, you know, I think one of the thing is, I mean, I said it in the green room. I was like, to understand the British reactionary nationalism that you see today, you know, don't look at fascism, but look at like the Carry On movies of the 1970s, where there's a kind of like campish, cheeky chappy culture that used to exist. You know, people used to listen to Chaz and Dave back in the day. And British culture, British mainstream culture has become, quote unquote, more multi-ethnic over time. But and people's tastes have changed. And I think, you know, partly this is all, it's a generational thing, because, you know, like the older forms of British culture just seem very, very distant from where we are today. And like you said, Ralph, like you had that cool Britannia phase in, like, you know, beginning perhaps in the late 90s and down to the early 2000s. There was kind of just a big shift in the cultural tastes of Britain. Britain became a lot more Americanized. I mean, I think the big thing, I was at a barbecue last year with my buddies, and they were arguing over whether schedule or schedule was the correct British. I was like, what the fuck are you people talking about? Right? It's schedule, right? And they were like, no, it's schedule. It's like Britain has become enormously Americanized in a very low-key way. And it first hit me when, like, one of my crazy friends from Hull became like a QAnon obsessive. So, like, British culture, I think the actual big transformation that's taking place in Britain, and which has been like, is Americanization, which I think the reactionaries in the country are kind of maybe deliberately or maybe not, are kind of like saying, oh, our culture's changing because of all these foreigners, when actually it's because of Americanization. That's
Would you say it's Americanization from the right, like a Trumpization of hate?
I think that's been happening in the past few years, but not before that.
It's like, you have the woke shit as well, right? You know, that also comes in. So it's like you get like a right-wing Trump Americanization, and you get like it's like, I always found, like, not that I think there's like many things that Britain needs to confront in its historical past, but like the BLM stuff in Britain was like really weird. You know, it's like it just didn't seem really, it seemed really unapplicable. I mean, we had the famous case. Well, there was this famous
show I had on here where I was called a settler by people in chat, and it's like, no, I'm not.
Yeah, it's like, and also like the right wingers adopted this shit. Like if you watch, what's his name, Carl of Swindon, Sargon of Akkad, like he's like, we're the native British and stuff like. There's this whole stupid debate over whether English people can be black, or like you would say you were British, or like, or is English an ethnicity? Yeah. There's like
remember the Rishi Sunak thing?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
It's like, bro, Rishi Sunak is just, he's just like any other posh boy from a school, except he's a bit brown, right? The axis of cultural divides is about what schools you went to, right?
Yeah.
You if you went to a state school, you have one set of culture, right? And the most integrated schools you have like, let's say you have 3 levels of school in Britain. You have like the elite public schools, which are private schools, obviously. then you have private schools like that I went to, like Hull Grammar, which is like, it's not like the uber rich, but it's like middle class people in the sense of like lawyers, doctors, kids, but not like, multimillionaire people. And there's a kind of integrated culture there. And then you have the working class schools, which I guess are a little bit more cliquish in a sense. Like you'd have like I went to a upstate sixth form college and used to have a place called Freaks Corner, which is where all the alternative and goth kids went, and then there was Packy Corner, which was where all like the brown people used to hang out with each other. So like you have a little bit more of that in different cliques and that, but like the axis has always really been class,
and class in a very British sense, because when we're talking about class in Britain, I would say it's more like it's a synonym for caste in a lot of ways, because class is meant to, as Orwell once said, it's branded on the tongue. It signifies how you speak, what your culture is, your norms, and, ties in with your region. So obviously in the north, they have their own identity, and of course Southern English middle class identities are very much the dominant sort of official, quote unquote, official identity of England. So yeah, there's a lot of nuances and when it comes to class in Britain.
One good thing about my school was I went to a Catholic school, a Catholic comprehensive school, but because it was a Catholic school in an area which wasn't very Catholic, it meant that we were drawn from the whole county and people not of all social classes, but actually a mix of working class and upper working class and lower middle class and so on and so forth. Though it was also an all-white school, but just because where I lived.
Pascal, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, there have been several interesting points that have been brought up by our friends from across the pond. How has this Americanization manifested itself? What has been the vehicle under which British society is facing this Americanization? I'm very curious. I wasn't aware of this phenomenon. Is it because of the ever-presence of American popular culture? Is it American film, music, art? Or is it military bases? I mean, what exactly is causing American culture to be saturated so much into British life?
I think a big part of it is that the cultures are so similar, at least in kind of their most obvious aspects. So British people, especially British young people, don't even realize when they're being Americanized. They don't realize when they start saying the American version of a word, or when they start saying things within the American context, because things are so close, you get fooled into thinking they're the same. You kind of forget that they're actually different. And people will apply American context and American words and American relationships and so on to the British circumstances because they're so close, because it feels like they almost do work, but they don't in these subtle ways. And I think that is one of the things that leads to weird stuff going on when British people try to be woke or try to be racist even.
Well, like I said, I watched that movie from 1959, and you people were really good at throwing N-words in, and it didn't feel that different. It was just an accent. That was the only difference.
I'll give you an example.
Oh, Gene, you're muted, Gene.
I unmuted him.
Okay.
No, I'm just saying, even with the racism, like you've got an Americanization of like nobody says nignog anymore, right? Nobody says those kind of words anymore. Like that's like very archaic. Like there's a lot of old
there's unless you're like 90 years old, you're not still out there fighting for gollywogs.
Yeah, exactly. It's like it's almost as if British racism is being Americanized as well, and I feel I get a good perception of it because I go back to the UK for like 6 weeks to 2 months every year. So I'm away for like 10 months and I come back for 2 months. So I get enough time to like get back in. And it's just like every year. I think the internet has a lot to do with it. I think one of the fascinating things I find is like my friends in Hull, right? My normie friends in Hull, like they all watch Breaking Points, right? They're all watching Breaking Points. They're all like very clued up on American politics. And if you look at a lot of the most successful British context creators, they just yammer on about American stuff all the time. I mean, you have Navarra, which is British focused, but even Navarra is very much like kind of
They had
adjacent.
Kimberly Crenshaw on there.
Yeah, I mean, they're still very adjacent to the American context creators. And I feel that's kind of like deliberate because they're like, if we don't do a bit of the American politics culture slop, I mean, I guarantee there are people probably who don't know who their own MP is, but know who AOC is, right?
Is it just markets at that point? We talked about this early on with this show with all the Canadian.
Yeah, I think it is partly markets because if you're a content creator, you're like, I could go for the British market, or what's that guy called? The one, there's one guy I've seen, a British guy he's called what? He's got a funny name, the Cavernacle. Is that? Do you guys know who I mean?
No.
I think you're making them up like you're racist.
There's a British guy who does the content called the Cavernacle. It is British content, but like every other of his videos is something to do with American culture war nonsense. And I feel Britain
I think that's the other side of it, right? Because it's so easy also the other way for British culture to penetrate into America. It's very easy to take up these frames and circumstances and then just use them to talk to Americans with.
I mean, British culture is so dominant in America that no one pays attention that there's an entire genre of music where people sing in a fake British accent. I'll never understand pop punk. I'm like, why do you guys all sound like retarded British people?
I sent you that British black pop punk girl.
Yeah, don't. That's an off-air conversation that we could get into. That won't be very long on my end, but
no. But I'm saying she sings in an American accent, and it's weird.
Oh, I thought you meant the Black Kids, the black pop punk band that does the. They're really annoying.
I don't. Oh, well, no.
They're
There's
the
this
DEI of pop punk right now.
No, there's this. I can't remember what her name is, but it was like I flipped and I heard a song, and I was like, I wonder if she's American. And then it's like, my name's.
Oh, there's a rapper right now. I wanted to ask you guys about this. This is actually somewhat on topic. There's a rapper with a hit song that I am not a fan of, and apparently he's doing a British accent. I thought he was just a dandy in America. He's from LA, and people are saying that the entire song is AI, including his vocals. The song is called Rubbers. I'm sure you Ralph has probably heard of it. I feel like you're such a cultural critic, you've heard of it. I'm sure one of your white writers was like, Ralph,
I thought you were going to talk about this like New York public school boy. Well, not public school, I guess private school boy. Like from a very, very rich family who then became like a trap rapper.
But have you seen this guy? Andrew Callahan just interviewed him recently.
Oh, did he?
Too. And the dude is I think he's from LA, and he has no accent at all. And when he was doing the song, he got a phone call. He was actually, when he was doing the interview with Andrew Callahan, Timbaland, the producer, called him. And Timbaland is like all in on AI. So you can hear Timbaland telling the guy, he goes, well, what are they saying? He goes, well, I'm just telling them that I talk in a fake British accent. And he starts talking in this really, really bad British accent. If you hear the song, it's not a good British accent.
His name is Frisco Kid.
Really, I'm sorry? What'd you say, Pascal? Did you freeze?
His name is Frisco Kid.
I don't know his name. His name is fucking.
No, I think I'm good. Am I freezing?
You're delayed a little bit.
I think the guy's name is Frisco Kid.
I'll take your word for it. But it's not very good. But like, what do you guys, when you guys have been hearing this music for the last like 30 years? Do people ever talk about it from the British standpoint of like these Americans are biting our accent and making
let me give you a very weird example right here. So you know those Iranian hip hop tunes that they make, you know, like the propaganda ones?
Mhm.
Yeah.
So like a new one came out recently, and it was super weird because the AI at certain points in it was doing it like an American accent, and then at certain points it was doing like a rude boy London accent. so it's like it sounded super weird, and I was like, this is just this is what's happening. It's like the great unification of the Angloid world, you know. It's represented by what the AI has gobbled up. So now it does a rap song and it can't keep its accent straight through the entire thing.
But
I mean,
Ralph, what say you to all this? You're the guy that actually talks about.
I mean, there's always been, exchange between an Anglo-American exchange, right? It wasn't like drill music. Started in Chicago, didn't it? And
I thought you were gonna say punk music, but okay.
no, drill. Yeah, and it obviously became popular in London, right? And now Canadians want to start singing it in London accents, which is a bit weird, but whatever. That's Canadians for you. But I think, well, we were talking about, I think a lot of politics in Britain is between left and the right calling each other America brained, right? Because the right wing will say about like the BLM protesters, this shows how the left is America brained. They're taking all these concepts from American academia, cultural Marxism, blah, 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 right? And then obviously, people on the left will say that the right is increasingly America brained because they're trying to copy Trump's populist playbook. So Nigel Farage will get called kind of this, especially they'll get called like that they're being very particularly slavish towards Trump because of like Nigel Farage was very diplomatic about how he talked about Trump in regards to Greenland and then Iran afterwards. So I think it's just part of the overall political culture that Britain used to be the top dog, right? It used to be the number one hegemon, right? Pax Britannica was a thing, and then the Americans took it over when the British Empire had to go, and and because the English language is still the lingua franca, so that's why it's easier in that sense for Britain to be more Americanized covertly without people realizing it. For example, Britain doesn't really have its own independent film industry because a lot of the best actors go to Hollywood.
Yeah.
Right?
Sorry, we took all your good blacks. But it's been a problem for us now because
yeah,
apparently all the discourse, I don't know if you've been following this, Stefan and Ralph, because of the success of, and I know Pascal and I, we've talked about this, the success of Black British actors who actually are quite well trained. These aren't just dudes off the street that want to make it, right? These are guys that actually have quite a bit of experience and training by the time they get over to the States, are getting roles, and American actors are complaining. American Black actors are complaining so much to the point now where some of these Black actors now are starting to fire back on some, well, fuck these Americans. They have a defective culture anyway. Do you want to chime in on a little bit of that, Pascal?
Yeah, it's basically like it all goes to Hollywood. It's the foundational Black American and American descendants of slaves argument against the arrival of people like what's my man from The Wire? Idris Elba.
Yeah.
Anthony
Mackie's from New York. What's another one? The dude that was in Star Wars, Jonathan Boyega.
Boyega,
yeah.
I mean, for me, the problem I have with the argument that the African American actors are making is that for years people fail to remember that Black actors were playing Africans, British roles for years. I mean, you had Denzel Washington played the South African freedom fighter, Stephen Biko. We had Will Smith played that African doctor in that movie a few years back. So it's not as if there hasn't been a cross-pollination of African American actors playing foreign Blacks themselves. Yet all of a sudden, when there is this influx of foreign Blacks coming to play American roles, it becomes problematic.
Well, you also have a lot of white British people and Australians playing English-speaking roles that no one seems to have a problem with.
That's what I was about to say. This phenomenon is not racial. It's not about quote-unquote Black Brits. It's about Brits and Australians coming to the United States. I'm sure there's an economic motivation behind this in terms of being able to come in and get roles in American theater and television, and a lot of it is because they're classically trained and they perfect their accents and they do well, and a lot of Americans like to see them. I don't, before the rise of these ADOS FBA arguments, I don't remember too many people complaining about Stringer Bell and The Wire being from, having a Cockney accent.
And speaking of Idris Elba, I think his comments on the James Bond role, I think in a way that's actually a good microcosm of like this racial identity crisis we talking about in Britain, because James Bond, certainly for post-war Britain, is in a epitome of Britain's cultural prestige and a cultural product it would export to the world, right? And because James Bond is an artifact of the Cold War, because Bond doesn't really make any sense outside of that context, because James Bond isn't supposed to be woke. He is because it was set. It is a post-colonial product in that sense, in the sense that Bond is a male chauvinist. He does have this kind of colonial condescending attitudes towards people of other races.
His Johnson is colorblind though.
Yeah. Yes. Except when it comes to that activity.
Still very colonial. That's
I feel like he's not colorblind in that way, but more of an appreciator of different things,
Still very much in line with plantation politics.
Yeah.
Conscious of each one, but willing to enjoy them all,
But yeah, the fact that
but that doesn't mean he has to be enlightened. I mean, like I said, Thomas Jefferson was shagging the labor too, so
Again, colorblind Johnson.
Yeah.
Here's another man with a colorblind Johnson, Gene Bajlan.
I mean, how'd you know?
Who told you that?
Who told you that? Yeah.
Shifting gears to Northern Ireland, which has historically been understood through sectarian conflict, Catholic and Protestant, British and Irish, but are newer forms of racial and anti-immigrant violence changing that framework?
Well, before we jump to that, I just wanted to make one point. I wanted to ask Stefan and Ralph what they thought. I have a perception, we've talked about the decline of the British Empire. Britain's no longer the top dog and things like that. But I do feel, at least until let's say the mid 2000s and beyond, Britain had kind of a disproportional cultural influence in a sense. I think there was you had an afterlife where British distinctiveness was able to maintain itself because British culture had a kind of distinctiveness that maintained itself. I feel that in a cultural sense, Britain has gone into very rapid decline. I trace it back to there was a high point during the Olympics, and then after that, everything seemed to go down really quick. And after Brexit, it absolutely just nosedived. And I just don't see. I guess partly there's institutional reasons for that. They don't fund the BBC the way that they used to do and things like that. But it just feels you've had a 1-2 punch where just British culture is becoming more Americanized. It's becoming more and just what made Britain distinctive is just becoming less and less clear. And I think partly the nostalgia, like I said, the nostalgia for the 60s, 70s, cheeky chappy, carry-on movie culture kind of reflects that anxiety because it really feels like there's this huge rapid cultural decline. I didn't feel growing up in the 90s and early 2000s. I didn't feel like British culture was, you obviously know Britain's no longer a great power, but there was no sense that British culture was in decline. But really, since the 2010s, it just feels like it's a cultural wasteland in many ways. They're just not producing things like Ralph said. There's no distinctive film industry. Britain is just more and more becoming a cultural adjunct of the United States. It might as well be as distinctive as Mississippi is from California at certain points. Like, yes,
Airstrip 1.
Yeah,
Airstrip 1. We've been Airstrip 1'd.
I think you're right, Gene, in the two things you identified. That it was the austerity from 2010 onwards that sent British culture in a terminal decline. Especially because arts and culture were cut first, but it was generally this whole perspective on what is easy to cut, what's easy to cut money down on, and what was decided in 2010 was the easy thing to cut down on is on capital projects, is on things which extend, which produce, which build something, while actually the state should just have this increasing burden of maintaining things like pensions and childcare and things like this without producing anything at all. And so arts and cultures were cut especially down, ridiculous amounts of cuts to arts and culture from the central government, as well as council funding being utterly annihilated. But alongside that, I think there was generally from 2020 a complete collapse in any belief in Britain or any funding in Britain for just to produce anything new at all. And the other thing is, Brexit, which if you watch Eurovision, you can find out pretty quickly that people in Europe hate Britain more than they hate Israel, and it's not close. Europeans genuinely believe that Britain is a more hateful, evil country than Israel, and that's basically entirely to do with Brexit.
Yeah, I wonder if the position of the royal family has something to do with the decline of British culture as well, because the royal family has been a long time been a British cultural product, and the image of the royal family. A lot of foreigners, one reason they like Britain is the royal family. This is the mystique of the royal family and the heritage it represents. And I wonder whether the whole business with Meghan Markle and the fallout out of that may have something been a contributor to this decline of Britain's cultural image. I wonder what, because it seems to me that, say, in the past, like certainly Americans had this kind of weird kind of attachment or like fascination with the British royal family, especially, say, during the Diana years. And I wonder if that's changed now. Curious about that.
You have to unmute yourself.
I mute him.
There you go.
You have to, what's his name? If you go to the supermarket here and look at the Daily Inquirer, every other story is about some Meghan Markle nonsense. So, like, people in the US are still pretty weirdly fascinated with the royal family. But certainly, I think the prestige of the royal family has rapidly declined as they've just,
Obviously,
the Queen.
Yeah.
The
Obviously,
Queen,
Andrew and Epstein doesn't help.
Andrew and Epstein doesn't help. Harry doesn't help. I mean, the Queen provided stability and was generally intelligent enough to shut up most of the time. Right?
As opposed to Charles, who's more or less an open libtard.
Yeah, he's kind of he's like Britain's version of RFK. You know, he's kind of like he's like a granola hippie libtard, but also very conservative in his architectural taste. Whatever the case is, it's like the royal family's prestige. I mean, I think the only reason that the monarchy hasn't been abolished is just because inertia, number one, and number two, it's like then like Britain would have to like totally accept its like subservience to Americanism.
Well, we'd also have to like elect a president or some bullshit.
Yeah, exactly. It's
ever happened.
Yeah, but if we get a really, really dumbass, embarrassing monarch, it could happen, I think.
Can we move on to Ireland now?
Yeah, sure.
I think a funny thing about Northern Ireland is that basically no one in mainland Britain knows a single thing about it. Like in the lead up to Brexit, no one mentioned the fact. Like, it generally wasn't a thing of like people were ignorant, people they should have known. Like, basically no one said anything at all about the fact that Brexit was a massive problem for Ireland because Ireland, because of the Good Friday Agreement, can't have an internal border. There can't be a border between the north of Ireland and the south of Ireland. But Brexit, presumably, of any decent strength, as it was called back in the day, requires a border between the United Kingdom and the European Union. And Ireland will remain in the European Union. So how do we sort that out? And it's led to a bizarre situation where there's this semi-border that exists between, like in the Irish Sea, between Ireland and the north of Ireland and Britain. But it's also, I think, something which is neglected in British discourse is that like Northern Irish Protestants are understood in the sense of being like pro-British, which is in some sense true, but more of like an abstract ideal of Britain and not anything to do with the British state normally. There's always been hostility and a great deal of resentment it's also similar to like Rhodesia or South Africa or something like this. Not South Africa as much because of the Dutch influences, but there's a thing where there's these outposts of what was formerly settler colonialism, though obviously the settler colonial project now hadn't finished a long time ago, where the people there who aren't fully part of the metropole feel that they are the real ones. They're like the real British people who are actually going to defend the country and so on, defend their culture and their traditions and so on. And that leads to a lot of resentment. Like people, Protestants, Unionists in Northern Ireland often proposed when Britain looked like they might back down and give something over to the Irish, instead like independence, like separatism from Britain and from Ireland in order to maintain their own culture. So I don't think it's kind of surprising to see now that people in Northern Ireland are increasingly kind of basing their politics loyalist and Republican around kind of a rejection of this idea that the British state is like sending immigrants into Northern Ireland or whatever. And also, like there's very few people that live in the north of Ireland, so very few immigrants can have this like a very visible effect on the country, especially because like they didn't have any significant immigration until basically like now.
Ralph?
Yeah, and well, for people in the audience, if you want to know how passions can be inflamed, how high they can be, in Glasgow, in the football match between Celtic and Rangers, you can see, on the Celtic side, they'll have the Irish tricolour because Celtic was founded by Irish immigrants in Scotland, while the Rangers fans are the Unionists and will have the Union Jack. And it's kind of weird how these tribal affiliations could map out onto geopolitics because obviously Celtic fans will fly the Palestinian flag and the Rangers fans will react by flying the Israel flag alongside the Union Jack. And so that's one thing there. But with Northern Ireland, yeah, we always treat it as it's not really part of Britain, even though it is technically part of Britain, though legally it has this kind of very strange position within it. So it is strange the way we see Northern Ireland. But yeah, was it entirely surprising after that we saw what were basically pogroms? Like that's not an exaggeration to call it that. In Belfast, in the way we saw them, not really, because occasionally you do see these ignition points, but it is part of a pattern that is starting to emerge. Because 2 years ago on the mainland there were the Southport riots after the Southport murders, which were
which led to like actual intercommunal rioting in the UK, which is something which has not happened for a long while.
Yeah, probably some people will say that haven't happened since the days of the English Civil War. Yeah.
Ralph, where do you live approximately?
Berkshire.
Okay. I don't suppose anything happened in Berkshire in 2024.
No.
Gene, did it go off in Hull in 2024?
Yeah, shit goes off in Hull, although you can't really tell the difference that much from a normal Friday night in Hull, to be honest. So, Yeah, I mean things go off. I've been my friend who lives down like in town in Hull was saying like people were chimping out in Hull. So
Do they say chimping out? Is that phrase gotten that popular?
I know I like it because it really describes what's going. I'll tell you what. Down my parents, there's a mini roundabout next to my parents' house that got the union.
Did the Patriot die putting a flag up on it?
Somebody put a St. George's cross on the roundabout. Hull's got they elected a kind of mentally deficient young man to be the head of the council. Buck's a guy.
Oh wait, Ralph, are you yet in a reform council?
No.
Okay, because Hull's a reform council and Gateshead is a reform council now.
It would be very unlikely for my council to flip to reform. Just saying.
Too posh.
Now,
Oh no, they're more like too immigrant.
Okay.
Pascal, have you been following the situation in Northern Ireland?
Yes. What's up with you guys, man?
Well, I was going to say when Ralph was, I didn't know Ralph, but he mentioned, there's basically been pogroms in Northern Ireland. But it shouldn't be surprising that this happened because this was something which has been happening for decades in Northern Ireland.
Yeah.
Intercommunal rioting, attempts to expel Catholics, especially normally Catholics. Normally the violence went that way, but sometimes to evict Protestants from certain areas, went on for decades and decades. And that's why there's things in Northern Ireland called peace walls, which are like gigantic. They're taking quite a lot of them down now. But for a long time, like areas in Belfast and other medium to large towns, because there aren't any of the cities in Northern Ireland, were walled off. Like it was segregation on a level that you would not see even in the most extreme place in America, where these communities were physically separated and prevented by state security forces from interacting with each other, because otherwise organized groups of young men from these groups would go and just pogrom each other like all the time. Really? There was massive problems, which was called the marching season in Northern Ireland.
This is the march songs that they have and the oranges.
Did you ever see the Harry Hill episode about it where Harry Hill's like he goes to like an Irish bar and there's all leprechauns for St. Patrick's Day and he's dancing with them and he's like, oh, I wish I could be Irish, and they turn him into an orangeman. Well, they said they had these marches to commemorate massacring Catholics back in the 17th century.
Good times.
Obviously doesn't go down very well in Northern Ireland. But yeah, what Stefan's saying is like there was already a culture of pogroms there. And, like, again, late 90s, 2000s, the Irish question was like kind of resolved, It was like growing up in the 90s, people, there was still like IRA bombs and things like that. But once Good Friday came along, like it kind of just chilled out, and people forgot about Northern Ireland, right? And
the customs union of the European Union meant that border didn't really mean anything.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like the European Union, a combination of Good Friday and the European Union solved the issue. You still had like gridlock in the Stormont Parliament because when that was restored, but at the end of the day, it was like people, the people weren't, going at each other. So for the rest of the country, kind of just forgot about what was going on in there. And if I'm not mistaken, there has been over time a kind of outflowing or reduction of the Protestant community in Northern Ireland as well. So, there's a lot of anxieties there. So obviously with immigration coming there, and the immigration question has actually been like a quote unquote, and I don't mean this in like a normative sense, but it has got worse because Brexit, basically they replaced Polish people with people from like Africa and Asia. So like the racists are like, wait, we voted Brexit and now we get more Indians. What's going on?
Because in the immediate aftermath of Brexit, there was a real reduction in the degree of concern about immigration. If you look at UK polling for quite a few years between like 2016 and 2019, people in Britain really stopped giving a shit about immigration. People were like, oh, the situation is being resolved. And then for like, because he thought it would be funny, Boris Johnson imported like 1 million new immigrants in order to do care work in the United Kingdom, in an attempt to deal with our like demographic crisis and so on. And then, you know, COVID happened. Things began. It's a combination of the fact that Britain rapidly gets shitter just every so often. And also there's these random massive waves of immigration, like happened with the Boris wave. Like there was this real massive wave of immigration. People feel like it felt like such an obvious, self-evident betrayal, especially from Boris Johnson. It was meant to be the leader of, you know, the Brexit movement. But I also think it's why reform is never going to really prosper, never ever is going to be able to capture this rage and this anti-immigration sentiment and the desire to kind of try and fix or avert the decline of Britain, because they've invited so many people into their party who were part of the Conservative government, who were the immigration ministers. The immigration minister, Robert Jenrick, he was an immigration minister under Boris Johnson. And now he tries to be like, he's the guy in reform who's most likely to kind of talk about like demographics, getting towards like white replacement and this kind of stuff. And he literally oversaw like a massive immigration wave. So I don't think these people are ever going to be taken seriously by serious racists. And that's the other thing. To be blunt, reform or trying to like be the racist party while having large like top figures in their party who are South Asian. And I don't think British racists are woke enough for their racist party to be filled with non-white people.
Yeah, I mean the racists are butthurt, man. Like they've got that fine African lady in charge of the Tories.
Ain't nothing fine about Kenny Baddencock. Ain't nothing fine about that.
Oh, don't you lie to me, Pascal. I saw her and I was like, Pascal is going to be deep down gooning over her.
Give me a break. She's horrible.
You love the accent. You love the accent. But then you've got Yusuf Zia, who's just like, it's like, come on, man. You can't tell me you're committed to maintaining the future of the white race if you'd like giving me Kenny Braddock and fucking Yusuf Zia. It's just absurd. And then like Rupert Lowe's party, like the problem with Rupert Lowe, he just like hates poor people. And like it's not shy about it, which is like, look, if you're going to do a bit of a fascism, you've got to like pretend you don't hate the povos. But he doesn't do the JD Vance thing, which is like like JD Vance got famous because he used to do like pull your pants up for white people, but now he's like poor white people, we're all like oppressed. Like Rupert Lowe still does the povos have it on them, it's their fault.
Yeah, instead of it like having like, because reform is just posh Southerners and then like second or third generation immigrants in their leadership roles, and then Restore is just one white Southern posho. One of these racist parties needs to get like a like a northern woman who's like kind of hot and it's like middle class, and then they'd win.
Yeah, they don't have the right cadre to do the racism.
So, are Reform and Restore all factions in the Tory party?
No,
they're both break-off parties.
They're break-off parties.
Yeah. So Restore has like 10 MPs now, and they're polling first in the polls, while Restore has one, which is Rupert Lowe.
Yeah. And he just doesn't like Muslims, because there's also a lot of weird axes in British racism, because it's like there's a lot of anti-Islam stuff that comes out there, but also anti-Semitism is getting popular as well these days.
Yeah,
it's like a very close relative of mine is kind of sick of like didn't like the Muslims that much, but now is moving more on. I'm kind of sick of the Jews now, so like there's a lot of like, where do you direct the racism? Like you got the Hindus versus the Muslims. Like, can Hindus be on the side of the white people, but also people
they hate Muslims.
Because they hate Muslims more than the white people, but also the white people don't like the Hindus that much because you get telephone scammed by them a lot. and then black people, again, it's like you've got the weird cleavages between like, I don't mind the Afro-Caribbeans, but like the people coming from Africa, it's like very like The British racism is also super incoherent.
An
And
interesting
then-
thing I'm wondering about with Ralph and G, what they think about it.
Yeah.
But I feel like a lot of casual racism in Britain is anti-black. There's a lot of like the comparative racism, like the national comparative racism is not anti-black. It's like it's anti-Muslim, it's anti-Pakistani, it's blah blah blah.
I think that's fair. I think certainly Afro-Caribbeans are kind of slightly more accepted now than what they used to be, because there's that common kind of colonial culture from back in the day, and I guess because Afro-Caribbeans have assimilated quite literally, like mixed race kids from Caribbean backgrounds outnumber Black Caribbeans 2-1, right? Literally. So like that's why even some people saying like, oh, the Caribbeans are like becoming extinct in Britain.
Well, there's also a thing because like among the Black communities are the most like committed, like evangelicals or whatever. They're also have this American foreign influence. Yeah, so that when you see like a Tommy Robinson rally or whatever in London, it's going to be white people and then like a few Black people.
Yeah, and Iranians.
Yes,
and Iranians, of course, of course. Gene.
Tommy Robinson's Unite the Kingdom rally. He closed the rally with a Black gospel group.
Yeah.
Well, what's his name?
Racist.
And racism has also changed over time. Like when I was growing up, like Kurds and Iraqis, like for people who knew about Kurds and Iraqis, usually saw them, they're very educated people, because the only Kurds and Iraqis and Iranians who came to the UK were generally people who either worked in engineering or medicine, right? So people who came across them. But when all the Kurdish refugees came from Iraq in the late 1990s, absolutely destroyed the perception,
the goodwill.
Well, just people have a different. Like now, Kurds are like the biggest people smugglers in the UK.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think because they are relatively recent immigrants, but also had like an advantage on like the most recent immigrant groups. Kurdish communities ended up running like all the smuggling networks in the UK, and also like all the illegal cigarette selling and like they
were important in drug dealing.
The stuff where you like buy weed just like in a corner shop kind of shit, which obviously is not surprising to Americans, but it's revolutionary here because it's very illegal.
That actually gets into the next the kind of question I want to ask, which is about the grooming gangs, which becomes a big talking point. And there's a trial going on right now. So how has that also kind of affected racial tensions in the country? You guys?
I think that's like the keystone going off.
Yeah, I think that is the watershed, because ever since then, because certainly for Pakistanis, Afghans especially, they get this tag that they're rapey, right, or nonces, right, that they're like sexually pathological, right? So, and then that kind of gets mixed in with the anti-Muslim stuff. So that's where you get all this discourse about Muslim grooming gangs. But even though, like if you look at all these major grooming gangs in like all the cities in Britain, they are like come from a very small like demographic within the Pakistani community. So it's like a minority within a minority. So this is where the grooming gangs, and especially the way it was dealt with at the time, that the authorities didn't look into it as they should have, because of this perception that, we don't want to inflame racial tensions, right? That stuff literally did give a lot of ammunition to the likes of Tommy Robinson, Rupert Lowe, Nigel Farage, Carl Benjamin and the Lotus Eaters, and that whole new age ethno-nationalist crowd that in the podcast sphere. All of them will always return to the grooming gangs every time you hear them.
And I think it goes also back to what Ralph was saying earlier about like class or almost caste in Britain, where also with the Henry Novak thing, people are treated very much based on their class, and if you slip into the lower working class and into the underclass, how you're treated by public servants in the UK, including the police force and councils and so on, is just you're the absolute scum of the earth beyond any consideration for anything. And so what was normally happening with these grooming gangs is that they would target girls, young women that were in foster care who were regarded by councils and by the police as basically like whores to be, or basically already whores, prostitutes, whatever. And so the fact when these girls reported what was happening to them, when other people reported what was happening to them, the police were like, yeah, like, yeah, that's what you people do.
That's what you people do. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, the council's like, yeah, of course. That's what, yeah, we expected that. Yeah. You're out there fucking 20 Pakistanis. Yeah. That's entirely what we expected. And they didn't give a shit. They didn't do anything about it. But it's not because it did have to do in some places with concerns where the police were like, well, we don't want to be racist by arresting like 50 Pakistanis. But the fundamental thing was that the police and the councils didn't give a shit about lower working class, underclass, young women and girls that were in the foster care system, because they were treated as basically excluded from normal life with no possibility of ever making anything of themselves. And also with the Henry Novak murder, this was attributed to him being white, but much more than that, it was to do with him being a man, and it was due to him being working class. And because he was a man and was perceived as being working class, he was perceived as like innately violent, innately dangerous, while his assailant, was slightly more kind of cultured in how he was able to approach the police. And so, the police just left him there, arresting him as he died bleeding out.
But going back to
I just want to jump onto that. I think that's like an important point. It's the point I always argue with people about the class aspect of it, because like I don't know if it was off air. I made the joke that my mom was like, grooming gangs sounds like they assimilated, because this was like this has been like a prevalent problem in the UK. Like there are people who I remember from the 90s who, like, in retrospect, you're like, oh, that was like a grooming gang, right? You had all these like the perverts outside the school gates trying to pick up the girls. I mean, they had TV series about it. I mean, the whole of On the Buses is about the bus drivers perving on like the schoolgirls, right? This is literally, this was like a very common thing. And the fundamental aspect of it, like Stefan says, was a class issue, because like, yeah, you had grooming gangs in places like Hull where it was white people doing it. People
anywhere in the
and
world,
they called those people that, what was it? I don't know if you guys called them this, Kappa slappers back in the day. Like they would wear Kappa track suits, and it's like a really dismissive, like a very dismissive way of looking at these kind of. I wouldn't even call them working class, like underclass people who were just like seen as subhuman by everybody else.
Well, young people
country.
in foster care, right? Like for even in the U.S. context, this is what I was trying to say. We actually had a guest on that wrote a book about foster care, and that tends to be the issue with a lot of young girls that go into foster care, that they're kind of fodder for pimps. And it feels like in the UK, conveniently, you got this racialized way to look at pimping, and we're going to call it something greater, which is a word that got real popular, which was grooming, right? We didn't call it sex trafficking before. We called it pimping and pandering.
It's organized crime.
It pretty much is, right? And if you think about how crime functions, it functions like anything else in a capitalist society. Like, well, I'm not going to go after this rich girl or a girl with means. She's going to tell me no. She actually has options. But when you're kind of spit out into the world at the age of 18, around your burgeoning sexuality, 16, 17, as you see 18 around the corner, and you're going to have to figure out how to take care of yourself because the system won't take care of you anymore. You're perfectly ripe for the opportunity for a group of people or a person to have you selling ass in the street.
And how it always starts is they'll make nice with you first, right? They'll give you material goods, money, trying to show you the love that you didn't get.
You can give someone McDonald's. It doesn't take much.
Something as simple as that.
Yeah, I mean, that's why the point of contact with the kind of racialized grooming gangs was like corner shops and shit.
Yeah.
Oh no! You don't have to pay for that candy. No, it's fine. You're so beautiful today. Like I get it, but it also feels like it only happens with these people.
I mean, like
Normal people
anyone
doing
who's lived in the UK knows that this is like like anyone who has experience in the UK knows that like this grooming stuff is universal part of British culture, right? It's like everywhere. People preying on working class people. It's just not an uncommon thing.
Jimmy Savile.
Jimmy Savile,
Oof,
yeah.
Jimmy Savile, yeah.
It's like it's been going on for years. It's and like I said in the 60s and 70s, they had comedy shows where this was the joke, right? This was the joke. It was like borderline socially acceptable, right? It was obviously not socially acceptable now, but the racialization of it, like Stefan said, in particular cases, there's an aspect to it. But that is a very politicized way of looking at it because it doesn't address the fundamental issue, which is the class component of it, and tries to displace that into some kind of like cultural argument when in fact it's like it speaks to like the nature of the British class system, the geographical divides. A lot of these grooming gangs were happening in real shitholes in northern England. Like these are places where you have like major social dysfunction. Things are just like pretty horrible. And if you just say, oh, it's like grooming gangs, it's as if like it's a problem that can be solved through a relatively clear set of policies, which is kicking out all the Pakistani people. But of course, that doesn't actually solve any of the fundamental problems that gave rise to the grooming gangs. And of course, in America, this is maybe a bit of a reverse, but where this discourse about grooming gangs in Britain has now become kind of an issue in the United States, where it's being used to talk about like certain immigrants can't assimilate into American culture. It's like, my bro, like we've just had Epstein Island, right?
Which functions the same way.
Which is the same kind.
It's an elite elaboration of the same kind of concept.
On a bit of a grander scale to a certain extent, because you have a little bit more
mostly
money.
on a lesser scale, like far less endemic. And I would say that's the thing. Like, obviously, I understand because it was done by an elite, but the grooming gang thing in the UK was an infinitely larger kind of system of paedophilia and sexual assault and so on than anything to do with Epstein. And there's also, I think it's interesting what Gene said about like, this stuff used to be normalized like within the mainstream culture like 50 years ago. I think that's another point of multiculturalism, that often immigrant groups in the UK are not like engaged in a different, unique culture, but are often engaged in a more conservative British culture. And so it's often like, it's almost like these racialized gangs were like kind of behind the times in what they were doing.
Can't just go hang outside the schools anymore. It's not 1979, you know?
You need to get with the times, guys. You need to be grooming online.
Online, exactly.
Well, that's everyone's fear, right? Like there's these two things that are going on. Like I'm going to now do Chris Hansen like stings because we're going to get all the pedophiles and child molesters online.
I mean, like the British, like there was a couple of years ago, there was a BBC a Radio 4 documentary about the absolute state of the British upper class boarding schools. Like the British ruling class has been bummed to death by their, like absolute like fucking pervy shit going on in there. And there's not that many minor. It's like pervy old geography teachers doing it, and that's a trope. That's a trope. The geography teacher will molest you.
But also like between students, right? Like that was more endemic in British public schools, and that was the thing that was like more acceptable. But yeah, people will just get absolutely traumatized to bits in public school and then just sent to like conquer the world. Go on, Ralph.
Oh, have you seen the film If with Malcolm McDowell?
No, I want to though.
Yeah, it's about the whole boarding school shenanigans in British in boarding schools. Yeah, it's good. It's good.
Yeah, I wanted to read about this stuff, so I picked up C.K. Lewis's autobiography.
C.K. Lewis?
Yeah. Wait, not C.K. Lewis. Wait, shit. Am I saying the right one? Is that the US
Louis C.K. Lewis?
Or the
C.S. Lewis?
C.S. Lewis.
I like Louis C.K. Lewis.
Not Narnia King, guy who wrote Narnia.
Not Narnia, yeah. Not American get his dick out guy.
I thought you were reading a Louis C.K. book about waving your dick in front of people that don't want it.
But I mean, like the fundamental problem is Britain is in massive, not only economic but cultural decline, right? And that's creating a lot of anxieties. And the economic decline since 2016 has been like exponential in a sense.
Yeah.
And like I said, because I go like when you're in Britain, it's like being boiled slowly, the frog slowly in the thing. But like because I, go for 2 months a year and then leave, come back 2 months a year, it's like it's really striking. Like you said, there's like these big, like between 2016 and 2019, things kind of got shitter. And then after COVID, things went real dog shit, right?
Yeah.
And it's like people, like there's a complete paralysis in British politics about what to do about it. Like Brexit, like all this shit about sovereignty and stuff like that, absolute nonsense in retrospect. It's like, well, now Britain is like basically has to follow all the EU rules, doesn't have any of the ability to affect those rules. Its economy is like, is permanently crippled, and so much politics has been reflected into the cultural wars, which is increasingly Americanized, so it's kind of weirdly alienated. So like nobody has like a real serious response to what to do about it. The Corbyn movement was like, whether or not one agrees with it or not, was actually an attempt to kind of like push back on that and provide a kind of new social contract in the country, which would have involved, more taxation and redistribution. But that's been like booted to death. I don't think the Greens are going to be able to do a thing. I don't think Burnham is going to. He might be a more charismatic Starmer in a certain way, but like, I mean, he's a career politician. I mean,
he might do nationalization, but it's nationalization of the kind of like socializing losses.
The losses, yeah. It's like we need the railways to function, so we'll nationalize the rail.
Yeah, we're going to nationalize Thames Water before literally people in London don't get any water anymore.
Exactly. So there might be but it'll be like emergency measures because the thing. So it's like you have this complete paralysis, and I think Britain is hampered in this way by its imperial past. Because the English, quote unquote, English nationalism is like dreaming of a greatness which is just not possible to achieve in Britain. Like America is in decline, but like the American Empire is in decline, but it's not Britain, right? Like the Iran War may be US's Suez moment, but like in the multipolar world, the American Empire is still going to exist, still going to be a big pole. It's still a huge continental empire with an enormous amount of resources, et cetera, et cetera. So the decline is happening, but America has like a lot more room to maneuver and how to deal with that decline. But Britain is a small country, right? And it's doesn't have all these like massive natural resources to draw upon. And that means like, what is Britain going to do? At the end of the day, the choice is between moving towards like a European bloc or becoming airstrip one. And I think Brexit has made the airstrip one solution like the only viable solution for Britain, unless there's a kind of like reversal and Britain kind of cozies up to Europe. But will Europe accept Britain at this point? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, I think there's a lot of interest in Britain or desire in Britain for like a little England nationalism. I don't think there's like a lot of nationalism in England. I think is perfectly happy with us being like a moderately isolationist, prosperous country. But I don't think the British political establishment has any interest in doing anything on that scale or in that direction anyway. It is like either the Atlantic or it's Europe. And I think also, again, it's the same sort of thing with Brexit, where Brexit opened up a large opportunity by getting us out of the Treaty of Rome and so on. It opened up a great deal of political ground, but again, it was nothing that anyone in the political class was interested in, at least in terms of people who are actually going to become prime minister. Corbyn, by like complete coincidence, essentially, in 2015, the Labour Party accidentally elected a British, a left Exeter to lead the Labour Party, and he kind of almost became prime minister, but he fucked it in the end. And then that kind of horizon was failed. I was going to say, Jason, should we thank the person who gave us $10?
Oh, yeah, we have to do that.
Yes, that's how we get more people to give us $10.
Yeah. Prairie Fire. The UK is the South Carolina of the EU, and Northern Ireland is the South Carolina of the UK. Historically up to no good, and when they make the news, it's a pogrom or something sports related.
Obviously, for this to be impactful to me, I would have to know anything about South Carolina.
It's above Pascal in Florida. It's a beautiful.
Wasn't it
place.
like the top slave state for a while?
Yep.
It still feels like it sometimes when you're there.
It's got Lindsey Graham representing it.
Hardcore right-wing politics, rice plantations.
I like Rice. Is that where Savannah is located? Savannah's in
Savannah's in Georgia.
Savannah.
It's near South Carolina, but no, Savannah's in Georgia.
I call myself Jean of the Ozarks. I'm like Lawrence of. I'm doing a reverse Lawrence of Arabia.
Is that what they call you when you walk into the Walmart?
Yeah, Jean of it's Jean of Arabia, Jean of the Ozarks. You know, like
Jean the Occident.
Yeah, just like trying to understand these people.
Well, we actually have people from Ireland that are a little offended by that comment.
Good. I was ambushed by Black Irish. Black Irish had left languishing on half pay.
I do sometimes find the Irish annoying, but my real hatred is reserved for the Scottish.
Damn, why?
The Scottish are the whingiest bitches in the union. It's
Whingy.
Like Wales and Ireland can like have a legitimate case that they got absolutely oppressed, right?
Yeah.
And the Scottish are you're like fuck them.
Scottish, right? You know, in like the movie, you have the bully, and then you have the bully's like a guy who like next to the bully who like eggs on the bully. Scotland's that like little one that eggs on the bully, and now they're acting like no. It's like no, man. Yeah. Your king came to England, right? Your parliament abolished itself because it spent too much money in Panama. And
like, Scotland had to run out with England because it failed at colonialism.
Yeah,
but then it happily took it up within the context of the British Empire.
Yeah, it's like literally they tried to set up this stupid colony in Panama, went bankrupt, and they were like, well, you know, we're gonna have to if we want to do a lot of raping and pillaging, we're gonna have to hook up with the English. So I have no respect.
I won't.
A lot of those imperial administrators were Scots. A lot of those imperial administrators abroad were Scots.
I mean, some of my best friends are Scottish.
No, don't let them get you we're oppressed nonsense. That's nonsense, right?
Do you see how they were acting in Boston? They were like, "Oh, we went for the World Cup. We went to Boston and we made friends with everyone.
Yeah,
and we lost all our matches." And it's like, that's not why you go to fucking Boston, mate. You go to Boston, you beat everyone, and you win the World Cup. Scottish people think that the point of the World Cup is to lose all your matches and then make friends with the locals, which is not the fucking point. The whole point of going to an international sporting event is to destroy everyone else and alienate them all in the process.
I'll tell you this. I don't like the only Scots I have respect for are like unionist Scots who like have no time for Scottish nationalism, but are also very Scottish, right? Like I have a couple of friends like that.
Look, I had my first munchie box in Scotland, and
munchie box meaning
they think fried Mars bars, deep fried Mars bars, are culture.
Yeah, and fucking leave them alone. Okay, leave them alone. Quit being a bully.
Or eating animal spleens.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good. I'm not gonna lie about.
I call that Scotland as chitlins. I had Scottish chitlins.
Highlanders can claim to be oppressed, but they got oppressed by Scots. So
yeah, like all the stuff where they anglicized the north of Scotland, that happened before the Acts of Union.
So I guess you guys, when you guys saw the movie Braveheart, you were throwing stuff at the scene at the screen. Huh?
Like, look, dude, if you can't appreciate Sean Connery playing as a Spanish man with his Scottish accent and thinking that's the funniest,
that's amazing. I mean, like, there's a good article by Hugh Trevor Roper about it. It's like literally like all the symbols of Scottish nationalism were shit that like 18th century anglicized Scottish aristocrats like to laugh past, basically.
I mean, people will try and do woke Jacobitism.
Yeah. It's like, man, come on, get out of here with your woke Jacobite nonsense. You want to bring back an absolute absolute monarchy to
An absolute Catholic monarch.
an absolute Catholic monarch to own the lips.
Look,
Own the,
you guys are being rude.
Woke too.
Ralph is half Scottish.
No, I'm not.
I'm definitely not.
Do you see his racism? No, please don't ever. Don't you dare.
No, I could get to Scotland in like an hour, and that's a problem.
The only Scottish person I have respect for is Alex Ferguson because he managed Man United. That's my team, Man United.
So you guys won't even watch the Sean Connery.
Man United.
That's how
when
bad you
I
guys
was
are.
a kid, I opted to support Man United for one reason only, because I got a computer game called Man United, which was like one of those like early 90s football games where you you had Jim
dot.
Layton. Jim Layton was the goalkeeper.
Yeah.
And you had to it took me like half a year to work out how to play it, because I didn't realize you had to train your players in between the games. So like all my players started going really slow because they never went just out on the lash all the time, and I'd lose the Littlewoods Cup to
Ralph, when were you in Swansea?
Oh, I was in Swansea 2015.
Okay. Because I'm technically still doing my PhD at Swansea.
Yeah, I like Swansea.
You still working on that, Stefan?
Yeah, I'm still on that bullshit. I had my Viva a few months ago. I'm just doing my final revisions now. But yeah, I felt like Swansea did not feel like a different country. Well, it's obviously, again, one of the most highly anglicized parts of Wales.
Yeah.
Well, back to your British racisms.
Yeah.
Have both major political parties adopted a language and policies around borders and immigrations that would have seemed unusual before Brexit?
It's interesting because obviously in 2015, the Labour Party released possibly like the worst political kind of bit of paraphernalia ever produced, which was just like a big tea mug which said on it, "Controls on immigration," in bright red text. So I think this thing of the Labour Party being like running scared from immigration started before Brexit. Brexit then, as I mentioned today, kind of actually tuned down the concern about immigration, but then it's obviously come back since the Boris wave and COVID and so on. So obviously, yeah, things have changed now, especially. I think there's still a step to go. I think what's happened most notably in the UK, pushed by American politics, and I think I blame it on the woke, which we might get onto, is like white identity is finally starting to break through. Finally, like Nigel Farage and people are mentioning white people, are saying stuff about like actually saying white. This is happening to white people or something like this, which is never before. Like if you look at the BNP National Manifesto from 2010, there was like they were not willing to engage in this kind of race identitarianism. They were instead focused on immigrants in this kind of stuff. And what's actually the breakthrough now is getting past just talking about immigrants to actually talking about white people as a race. I think it's also interesting. I'm wondering what Ralph and Gene feel about this. I feel like if we do actually get white identity politics, then that will be like the only real racial kind of identity politics in the UK. Because minority groups in the UK, apart from maybe black people, are not really willing to organize around their race. Because obviously, like Indians and Pakistanis are not going to do that because then they would have to admit that they were the same one or whatever. Like, there's not going to be Stop Asian Hate in the UK. That wouldn't work because there's so many internal divisions between Asian groups in the UK. I think also there's tensions within all these communities in the UK. So if there does actually manage to produce like a white racial identity in the UK, it'll be the only kind of real racial identity in the UK.
Ralph, you want to add to that?
This is racial politics in the UK. It's funny because under Keir Starmer, he said this speech about immigration, which was we're becoming an island of strangers.
Hmm.
And he got a lot of flack for it because it was a kind of a callback to Enoch Powell's Rivers of Blood speech, because the phrase was kind of similar to something Enoch Powell had said, because that too much immigration means that we're all going to become strangers to one another, we won't recognize each other, and we won't have a society, and so on. And the funny thing is that Keir Starmer has actually brought down net migration numbers really quite down on his premiership.
Yeah, we're probably going to be net zero this year.
Yeah, quite close to net zero. Yet, it seems like it's not being registered among like the whole reform, restore, Lotus Eaters kind of crowd. And I think there is that. It's quite spooky how that kind of white racial identitarianism is starting to become more louder and explicit in recent years. Yeah, in recent past couple of years, and especially when you see on the online right, they have this meme, the UK YOOKAY.
Oh yeah,
UK culture.
Yeah, UK culture, which that's their way of saying, of trying to recognize the cultural decline of Britain, because they'll say it's because of too much immigration that's created this kind of mosaic society which doesn't have a common culture anymore.
Right? Yeah, I mean, I think that's why the immigration issue is kind of like, it's like a displacement of what the real issue is, which is the decline. That's why I make the joke that it's all about they want to you have to watch Carry On movies and On the Buses and 70s TV to understand what the fuck are they hearkening back to, right? Like, what is the thing that they want? It's like this very camp Barbara Windsor version of Britishness that like just doesn't, which itself was a kind of like a very of a moment, right? Like of like a late 60s, early 70s kind of a cultural moment in the UK. And, some of these things are cyclical. There was a big panic in the late 70s, early 80s about immigration. And like one of the interesting things I learned is because I was born in 1982, my children are automatically British citizens, right? Born after 1982, your children have to be naturalized as citizens. So like birthright citizenship, those kind of things were like exercised during that kind of panic. But like this is now how everything is being rephrased. It's not really about immigration anymore. Like the immigration has already happened, the cultural change has happened, and there's like if you grew up in the 90s, I guess you still kind of had a vague vision. Like I think it's to do partly with TV reruns, because like repeats on TV. You like my generation watched repeats on TV, so we had like a connection to the pop culture of the past, right? Whereas like kids who grow up today, they don't have repeats to watch on TV. Like you're not gonna watch Are You Being Served on like nobody's watching.
Great show, Gene.
Are You Being? Yeah, nobody's gonna watch, but nobody's what like no like as a like a
I had to watch.
It's not
like,
forced upon you. It's not
hello, exactly. That's like no one's. But like this new generation doesn't have a thing to it. So like a lot of this culture anxiety coming out of like older millennials and Gen X. Because there's like this has been this huge cultural shift, and partly I think because of like things like people don't have the same connection to the past because they just don't sit and watch TV. Everybody's just watching YouTube and shit. It's very disorientating for these people, and it's like immigration becomes the thing, but it's not really about immigration. It's about this fundamental issue of economic and cultural decline. And the irony is the white I mean like the irony is like the Lotus Eater type of people, they're adopting the woke language now because they talk themselves about native English, right? And that like they're being colonized. It's like what's the Bunga guy, the one who's became like a right winger,
Phil Connelly.
Phil Connelly. He sounds like a fucking Maoist, right? He's like doing he's doing Maoism for unheard readers. No offense, Ralph. If they'd let me publish, I'd write it. But
No offense.
you know, it's like the discourse ends up like this kind of weird anti-imperialism directed against like fucking migrants, and it's just weird, right? And it's a sign of the Americanization of everything, as our poor island suffers this profound identity crisis in its place in the world. And I think the point Stefan made, I think there's a lot of people who just want to stay in there, like go to the pub and things like that. But the British political class and ruling class cannot get over like Britain's position. It's like, just try and be like, I don't know, Spain or something, but like they can't get over this like imperial past and this kind of great power politics. And it's ironically that mentality is exacerbating the economic.
And there is this contradiction within that kind of online ethno-nationalism between that imperial nostalgia, you know, that we were once great, we once ruled the world, and you know, and this kind of nativist hobbit land nationalism, right, where England is this like, it's the Shire from Lord of the Rings, and now the orcs are here, the Uruk-hai are here, and they're taking over it. Yeah, you know, there is that kind of contradiction when, you know, if you're really kind of consistent about it, if you really want to be Little England about it, you would know that there is a connection between, I suppose, imperialism and, you know, this kind of cosmopolitanism, right? There is a connection there. So it's not totally wrong in the sense that, well, even in the United States, you get this critique that from the, I guess, the heritage Americans, they call themselves, whatever that means. You know, yeah.
The great irony is like my wife is more of a heritage American than most of these people, but like she's half Iranian, but her mum was American and she was brought up in in Iran. But if we're doing heritage American, she's literally a member of the Daughters of the American Revolution.
She's more American than Nick Fuentes,
she's like, Sarah is like, my children are descendants of American revolutionaries.
Yeah, but that's the problem for American races.
Scary thought.
They are mostly descendants from recent immigrants, like not very recent immigrants, but relatively recent immigrants in a country which is like, you know, not quite in living memory, but was in the past 150 years, like a settler colony. And there's a contradiction there when they try and do. There's also, I think, kind of going the other way, where Americans will try and take up the language of like European nativism, where they'll talk about like, oh, we're the indigenous people of this land.
It's so absurd.
Yeah, no, it's like, no, you're not. Like,
well, that's not new. I've watched
Gangs
of New York. I've watched Gangs of New York, so like, it's not a new tendency, you know?
Yeah,
that's a movie, Gene.
No, but you have this whole natives versus immigrants like every freaking generation in this country. But yeah, I mean, like the taking up of European ethno-nationalism in the US is like because of course it's like in the past you would have, you know, like, yeah, we are the settlers and we're white and we're coming to fuck you because you're inferior, right? But now everybody's woke, so you have to be oppressed. So like the whole like white identity politics is about we're the ones who are oppressed. It's like Israel is the perfect example. Like, you know, the Israeli state when the Zionist colonial project began, right? It was like, okay, the honkies don't respect us in Europe, so how do we get respect? We're going to make our own nation state. We're going to be an outpost of European civilization in the savage Orient, right? And we're going to colonize this land. We're going to make it bloom. But like now, like the whole discourse, if you ever read Adam Lewis Klein, he's like my favorite poster on Twitter. It's like the woke Zionism, where like we're the natives and like everything against us is genocide. It's like so like the right-wing politics, like wokeism has won because right-wing politics is absolutely predicated. I mean, obviously there's always been this kind of Christian martyr thing in like Western right wing politics, like Christians just want to be oppressed, even when they're, but like the way that the woke language is like repurposed for this like right wing political projects is kind of funny.
But it's their creation.
But it
Right.
shows how much of a disaster this whole woke politics was.
Sure.
It's all like critical whiteness stuff, and also the stuff with that feminists did around men. They insisted that white people should get an identity qua white people, that white people should think about themselves as white people, and that men should think about themselves as men, but that they should negatively evaluate these things, that they should be like self-abjugating. And that's never ever gonna fucking happen. If you get someone to take up an identity, they're going to take it up either as a victim, or they're going to self-valorize, or they're going to do both at the same time. They're never, ever going to self-abjugate. And so if you encourage people to become white people, to think about themselves as white people, the end point of that is obviously them becoming white nationalists, becoming white nativists. If you encourage people to become men, to think about themselves as men, they're not going to become self-abjugating men. They're going to become guys who are like, fuck, I want to be a guy, and I want to succeed, and I want to blah, blah, blah.
Do you know
So
how
what you're saying is that the current politics is a reaction to both whiteness studies and feminism.
I mean, we have the worst of both worlds. Like in the gender wars, we have like both the most annoying girl boss feminism and like the most debased, like grotesque misogyny, like at the same time, right? It's like Kuber always says. He's like, he always says, like, stop, don't make them think of themselves as white people. That's just never going to end well.
Well, he also says yelling at white people for being white people probably isn't going to work out for you. And I think we're in the throes of.
Yeah, I mean, Colin Kilpatrick was saying this back in 2017. Like, it was obviously going to be ending in a fucking disaster, and it has.
You know how fucked we are on this is that when I saw, Renard Camus, who made up this great replacement theory term, when he, in the epigraph of his book, quoted Frantz Fanon.
Of course
That's how I knew, okay, we really are fucked on this.
I mean, wokeness was just the normative inversion of like racism, right? Racism and sexism, just the normative inversion of it. Yeah. And it's like it has been politically disastrous. And I think, I think it's a lot of people on the left have learned that lesson, I would say. Like, not everybody, but I do think there is a lot, like, people are a lot more critical of that now. But I mean, I don't know what you and Stefan think, Ralph. Like, I feel like our position that all of us on TIR have been taking since like 2020 has been vindicated to a degree.
Yeah, I think so. I think wokeness is reaching its winter. I think we are past the peak of wokeness. So especially because I think because when like Ash Sarkar in her book was saying, maybe we went a bit too far with some of this stuff. Mm-hmm. I think that was like a signal to me. It's like, okay, I think the general kind of culture kind of now recognizes that wokeness at the time has reached its limit, and it's.
But we realized this in 1993. We realized it again in 2014. Right, we're making fun of this. Mm-hmm. I wrote about this last month. These were things that we were recognizing and calling out 30 years ago, and they just keep getting new lives because as technology changes, there's a new way to monetize a certain kind of grievance, and it just gets remarketed. And I'm not going to stop saying it. Woke is a right-wing creation. You're basically just taking political correctness, academic speech, and making it into something totally of your own creation.
Yeah, but sometimes we kind of repeat the same arguments we've had. So obviously, I'm sure you're aware that, in the late 80s, early 90s, in America and even I think in Britain, there were debates around multiculturalism, the canon wars, that sort of thing. I know there were books written about it, all across, like, what's that? Something of the American Mind by the really kind of
the closing of the American Mind.
Yeah, the closing of the American Mind. Robert Hughes also wrote a book about the culture wars.
Well, there was definitely, I think, something at least quantitatively different about the quote unquote great awakening, because it was just such a mass phenomenon, right? It was like such a mass phenomenon. It wasn't just something that was taking place in intellectual or circles to an extent, but it kind of just became this like pervasive online and then flowing into the real life phenomenon. I think COVID, like people like were in their houses in COVID with way too much time on their hands, and I think that like also contributed to that.
Yeah, politically radicalized, but not be able to go outside.
And also, people saw a lot of the shit. I think we talked about this, Jason. We were like saying like we see all these really horrible images of police doing things to Black people, right? And they're really horrible, legitimately horrible things. But if we'd had camera phones in like 1950,
yeah,
it would have been like a million times worse.
But that's the thing, right? We had cameras and we actually saw, let's just say in 1965 in the Watts riots, people literally saw police beating the shit out of women. And that was part of the civil rights thing. Like we were going to dress really nice. We're going to behave ourselves and we're going to show the world how effed up police are in these areas. And this is how we're going to have people have some sort of sympathy or empathy for our cause. That's in the 60s. By the 90s, if you remember Pascal, Saturday Night Live was making fun of Antioch College for their rules of dating. You remember that?
Yeah.
And then by 2014, I feel like I have enough people on the screen that watch South Park. PC Principal comes into play.
PC Principal was like ahead of his time, though.
That's 2014. It's not. That's the thing. It's not ahead of its time. It's of its time, and it's already saying, "I'm tired of this." By 2014. So
it's because Obama's second term went a bit.
So Obama's second term was a disaster culturally for this country.
Yeah, that's where you got BLM and Me Too started under Obama second term.
I think Me Too started under Trump, but BLM started under.
I think it started. No, I believe it starts. The hashtag actually starts with Obama.
Yeah,
it blows up. It blows up in the Trump term.
Should we do our donations again?
Oh, yeah.
I was going to close the show with that, so we got some time.
Okay. Well, no, just because I mean, some of them are probably worth like.
Oh, they're for the conversation now.
Yeah, I was going to say like this suggestion for what Britain's future should be. I'm like, yes, agreed, 100%. Prairie Fire said the UK simply needs to become airstrip one for the CCP to be able to export agricultural goods to China and get cheap electrical vehicles and solar reverse Hong Kong. CCP gets the Isle of Man. I don't think they need the Isle of Man, but I think this is a good.
They can have the Isle of Wight.
I mean, if they want an island, they can have it, but I don't think they need it, you know. But I think it's also the point where we're still like Chinese young people are still kind of impressed by British culture. But if we delay any longer, they'll forget about us. You know, this is the moment to strike if we want to become friends with China. It's now, while they're all still reading Shakespeare. A very funny thing happened in my Chinese class, where our teacher couldn't remember the name, like instantly off her head of like the greatest British writer, and so we were like, J.K. Rowling, and she was like, "No, Shakespeare, you idiots." But yeah, I think that we could do that. That would be the way forward.
I feel so vindicated. I hated J.K. Rowling and Harry Potter
from the start.
From the start, I thought it was rubbish, and I thought it was like British middle class wank bullshit. And I'm so glad to have been vindicated by history.
Someone is also mentioning the new Goy thing, where people are taking the Nazi language and saying Goy, and then like people have been trying to position it as a slur, but they can't really explain why it's a slur, because obviously it's not directed towards Jewish people, but rather it's directed towards the outgroup referring to themselves. And the funny thing about this is we have an equivalent of Goy in the UK, which by evolution is chav. Chava, and then chav is basically the Roma word for Goy.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's
yeah,
kinda...
Chav in Roma means
Gene's like,
non-Roma.
ooh, a new racism.
New race, I didn't know that. But have you seen that? Did you see that? I think it was at one of the big Israeli conferences. They had that British colonel, and he's like, "I'm merely a goy," right?
Yeah, no, it's horrible.
It's so, and there was the German
And
prime minister.
That's the thing. That's why woke can never succeed with its self-abjugating stuff. Because when you see someone self-abjugating, left or right, it's horrendous.
It's horrendous.
It's the worst thing you can see in your life.
I mean, when that guy said, "I'm merely a guy," I'm like, my God, that guy's computer hard drive must be diabolical. You know, it's like, but like the German prime minister said it, right? As a guy, it's like, dude, stop it. Yeah, it's exactly. It's like this ritual humiliation. Like, do you remember those images from like peak woke when they had all those white people like doing like public things where it's like, I reject my white privilege.
Yeah.
Like, shut the fuck up. It's like super...
My favorite was when white people would stand in front of black people talking, and like to protect them, like they'd be like black people were talking, and the white people would stand all around them, like, you can't touch us because we're white and we're bulletproof as well.
Well, the Trump administration proved that wrong.
Yeah, they were killing blonde people in Minneapolis.
Yeah, they were killing just regular white people.
But the thing is, kind of back, I guess, to an American context, when you think about that moment and how temporary it was, and I don't know if you think about this, Pascal, we have several high-profile killings of young black men. There's one that just happened recently where some body cam footage got released where the kid literally had no weapon at all, no knife, no stick, nothing, and a cop shot him. He did beat the cop up. Very skinny kid beat a cop up.
They killed a baby in Mississippi.
They killed a baby shooting into a car. Yes,
some like dumb fucking town, and then no one gives a shit. As far as I'm aware,
it's the moment where this is going to sound really bad. That moment got kind of swallowed up in internationalism with the war in Russia and Ukraine, and definitely what everybody saw in Gaza. And all the energy that was around these ideas that law enforcement functions to harass one group of people, and there's one group of people that is going to be internally oppressed. Not only does the international struggle that you see kind of on your devices every day make you go, well, this is way worse than anything that was happening domestically. Then you get the ICE occupations where, like you guys said, they're shooting American citizens. You're seeing these massive detention centers get thrown up for civil detention in like 8 days' time. And it really does speak to how quickly these things can be demobilized and built up to go try to fight another cause, but just forget the cause that it left behind.
What do you guys think of Mamdani's efforts to kind of thread the needle between woke leftism and anti-woke leftism? Because like I found him like pretty interesting in the way that, like, because the right wing has gone all like woke in its own way, he's been able to portray himself as like it's like, why are you talking about all these things? Like, let's focus on this. Even though they did just elect like the ultra woke adult Muslim convert, full support, right? I just think that's absolutely hilarious. But like I think there's been like I think because the right wing has become like so cancel culture-y and things like that. Now for the normies, they're the ones who are like annoying. So it's like opened up a kind of opportunity for a left-wing populist who is able to kind of thread that needle, say like, yeah, we're not going to abuse trans people, but why are you focusing on that? It's like Graham Plattner's done, where he's like, that's nothing to do with this. Let's talk about like income inequality.
I don't think it's appealing to the normies. I think it's appealing to the left. I think the normies are sympathizing more with the right.
I don't know
if
about
that was
that.
the case, then they would be winning elections, and they're not. So
where are these people winning elections? They're winning in hyper blue cities.
You're from New York.
Yeah, it's in the New York election.
Okay. This isn't the establishment Democrats that are winning. So everybody in New York is in the DSA. That's not true.
New York is a much more gentrified city than it was when I was growing up. It's a different town.
So you're saying that the New York that you grew up in would have been like, fuck these people. And
New York that I was growing up in was not having no Zoran Mamdani, I can tell you that.
They didn't want their rent froze back then. They were like,
they weren't going to buy it. They weren't going to.
Okay, but then how does anyone explain why Platner's super popular?
Exactly.
Because he's he's just like he's a Chud Michael Brooks fan. That's like literally his origin story.
Like he's like a 4chan guy.
Yeah, he's
Literally.
like he's a Chud lefty, and like he has like his guns thing, which totally that's his best stand that he like guns. But he does all the woke stuff, right? But also it's kind of like he's managed to frame it in a way where it's like, no, we're not the culture war crazies, they're the culture war crazies. It's kind of like an interesting development.
It's
I don't
also
think
a
anyone.
mea culpa. I mean, it's also a mea culpa for a man that I think he's barely 40 years old, that is kind of coming to terms with, you know, his own racism and sexism and living in a place where you don't really have to deal with that, right?
Maybe. I mean, I don't think there's any equivalent in British politics to that. There's like no Zoran Mamdani and there's no Graham Platner type people. You have Zach Polanski, who's like.
Why do you think that is, Gene?
I don't know.
I mean,
Maybe-
but I feel like Zoran actually. Sorry, I missed those and I was pissing. Sorry, but with Zoran, I'm not sure he's actually like politically exceptional in terms of his politics, as opposed to he's just personally exceptional. That he's running like a pretty familiar playbook. I don't think he's really mixing woke or anti-woke. I think he's pretty normal, mainstream American DSA kind of guy. He's just really good at politics, and he's like naturally charismatic and always knows what to say to the public to try and get his agenda to go forward.
And the
Maybe.
fact that Trump likes him.
Trump
Yeah.
likes him.
Trump likes a winner.
Which honestly, like I think
That's a good point.
charming
That's a
Trump, if
very
you
good
know
point.
what you're doing, is not too hard, but just lots of people don't want to do it.
Exactly. It's a lot of people, you know, like a lot of people. I mean, if Trump hung around with Zoran Mamdani all day, we'd probably have universal health care here in the US. You know, like Trump just wants to be popular. This is what these idiots.
Do you think, serious question to everybody, if Pascal doesn't want to hear your answer, do you think that if with the successes that we've seen in Trump's home state of New York, his ability to want to be liked, I agree with you 100%, Ralph, Trump loves a winner. Does he do some things like he did in the first term? You know, Kim Kardashian comes by and, you know, shakes her tits in front of him and gets, you know, a handful of people released from, you know, these ridiculously long prison sentences just on shits and giggles. Rappers get asylum and all this other shit. Do you think Trump does go, oh, well, you know, Zoran says this will work, so I'm going to pass this thing?
I think Trump is like too strongly controlled by the Republican operators and the people around him now compared to his first term when he had like some degree of like actual personal independence. So I think he would go for it. He doesn't really give a shit, I think, about this kind of stuff if he's been convinced like on the day. But I think he's now like within an actual network of like actual like people that have control over him. So I don't really think he has much like room to maneuver.
Though it's interesting with the, I suppose, what's recently happened with the Iran stuff, where at the beginning it seemed like the Lindsey Grahams and, you know, the Iran hawks who really have wanted that war for a long time were like pissing in Trump's ear about it. And then more recently with this business with the memorandum of understanding, it seemed like people more closer to JD Vance were the ones who were in Trump's ear about it, because, you know, this whole big thing about what Trump said about Israel and Netanyahu, like, you know, you can't do, you know, we've helped you out, but now you're making things a little bit difficult for us, that sort of thing. So Trump is very kind of volatile. He can swing one way and then swing on another way. I don't think he really has an ideology or a.
I don't think he has an
100%. No, he has impulses, right?
Yeah.
He has the kind of vague racial animus of a Staten Island resident, but beyond that, it's like, you know,
He'll get these like humanitarian impulses sometimes when like someone will show him like a dead kid from whatever war, and he'll be like, "Oh fuck, we need to stop doing this."
Yeah, like
He's also
it's-
really concerned about going to hell. Like he clearly doesn't believe in God, but does believe in heaven and hell, which is interesting.
yeah, he's just, and I think also he's 80. I think his mind is like people, you know, like his mind has gone to mush, right? Like he's not like he's not like he was in his first term. I mean, he's just old and crotchety. He probably doesn't sleep very well. He's not like a fit 8-year-old, right? Someone who's
Yeah.
like still on the ball, someone who's physically fit. Because I've seen 8-year-olds, 82, 83-year-olds who are still cycling on their bike, still a bit
Well,
slow.
the funny thing with Biden, right? Biden was actually physically very fit for his age, but then you doesn't stop your brain from going.
Going choo-choo train. Yeah. So like it's all I mean, it's just like, yeah, Trump's just his brain's kind of cooked. He's getting gayer and gayer as well. Like,
Yeah,
like,
that's the thing with Mandami. Mandami's a handsome man, and that's why Trump went with him.
He said something similar about the Syrian.
Al Shada. Yeah. He's
Al-Shada.
like, he likes a
Yeah,
swarthy
fucking
dark
army.
man. Yeah. But like, yeah, maybe Mamdani's just he's like good at politics.
He's good
So
at politics.
he's,
Worst thing about him, he's an Arsenal fan. That's the thing I have
He's a
against him.
fucking gooner, which is always established as a form of fascism.
I think deep down, Ralph, I know he says he's the man. He looks like a West Ham support to me, to be honest.
I mean, he did the real UK, as in YO.
Yeah, Arsenal is a real
Y.
UK team. It is that.
Yeah.
No, because he went to mosque, he went to prayers in like a long Arsenal, like oversized to your knee robe thing.
See, Zoran Mamdani is just proving
That's the other thing. So Mandani's British as fuck.
Yeah, he is British as fuck.
I mean, what do you think about Mondami, Pascal?
I think listen. I think Mamdani is a very talented. Listen, I was never an Obama supporter, but one thing I give Obama was a talented politician when he ran his election. I think that we haven't seen a politician as good as Obama up until Mamdani. Mamdani is a very skilled politician. He has the natural personality. He's very gregarious. Do I think he's going to be able to get everything he wants accomplished? No, I don't think so, because I think the political machinery of New York City will be too difficult for him to get that done. But at the same time, if he can get the basics of his agenda like accomplished and keep the trains running on time, I think he'll be successful.
Do you think that he's putting together a bit of a coalition, though, within New York state government?
I give him props.
Yeah.
Where he's better than Obama, he's already proven to have longer coattails than Obama.
Well, see, Obama was all about Obama and getting
that's
Obama
true.
elected. Mamdani, because he becomes, for better or worse, because he comes out of the DSA tradition, has this like mentality of like, we have to build a movement. And you're already seeing the difference, right? Because obviously Obama presided over the absolute collapse of the Democratic Party, and really, like Trump, doesn't really give a shit about the success of the Democrats. Whereas Mamdani I think the fact that he comes out of a different political tradition has a concrete effect on how he approaches politics. So, like, obviously, they were very tactical with their endorsement. So, Mamdani endorsed all the people running for Congress, whereas AOC endorsed all the people running in state elections and things like that. They're being like sneaky as fuck. And like they were smart, like they didn't go after Richie Torres. They didn't go after certain people. They didn't try and take on Hakeem Jeffrey straight off the bat. That's why I think the Democratic establishment is kind of shitting its pants, because it's like, oh my God, like these guys are just not, they're not doing the normal moronic leftist thing. Because at the end of the day, these guys are like, I like to call them like Stalin t-shirt New Dealers. You know, like they like they like the accoutrements of anti-imperialism, and they like the accoutrements of like Bolshevism and Maoism, like to a certain degree. But really, they're just New Dealers, right? And that's fine as a politics. But I think I think that's what's. But I think because they come out, because they have that kind of interest in like old school 20th century left-wing politics that like makes them a lot more alive to the fact that if they want their political movement to succeed, it's not just that you can't just organize around an individual, but you have to build up a cadre of people within the congressional things. I mean, I think this is all goes back to like, I think the big puppet master behind this all is Bhaskar Sankara. I think it's like I mean, it all comes out of comes out of the Jacobin playbook, right? Yeah. This is what it was like. We build up a congressional power. This is what it's been. And we're seeing, it's like, we're not seeing the death of the millennial left. We're seeing like the revenge of the millennial left, right? That's what's happening. Old boomer brainers and Gen Xers, like they dropped out of politics permanently, like after their like youthful flirtations, and we thought, oh, the millennials are going to follow this same like trajectory, but what's happened is they've just like gone back and they're just doing like more effective Democratic Party politics.
I don't understand what people in 2024 were like when Trump got elected. People were like, "Oh, it's over for the left." When like in 2016, that's the reverse of what happened, and then the reverse has happened again. It's like people are getting surprised twice by the same thing.
Short memories.
Yeah.
Gnat like brains. You know, time moves so different, especially after COVID.
The time moves real different if you spent all day on Twitter.
Yeah, exactly.
Fair.
But I think what we're seeing is like now what quote unquote the millennial left is. It's like a movement within the Democratic Party, right? Like, and it's a movement within the Democratic Party, and it always was a movement within the Democratic Party. But what's different this time around is that there's actually a strategy behind it. Like there's an organizational base, like within DSA, Justice Democrats. You have a cadre of like political operatives that have developed over the last 10 years, like people who can make the ads and things like that. So like there is a parallel with the Trump revolution in a sense, like because it's a revolt against the apparatchiks of the Democratic Party. But it's taking like, whereas the Trump revolt was like Trump led the revolt and then people like glommed onto him and kissed his balls for that. Here it operates a bit differently because they come out of this like notion of movement politics, and so they take these kind of like lessons from like mass political movements, organizing, door knocking, and things like that, and put that energy into like trying to take control of the apparatus of the Democratic Party, and that is like because they're doing it in that way. That is a way more formidable. That's why these Democrats are like, don't run in our party. Shit. Because like the Democratic Party isn't a party in the way that Stefan or Ralph and I grew up understanding what a party was, which was like you pay dues to the party. You go to party meetings. I was in the Labour Party for like several years back in the day, and like you go to the meetings and there's like canvassing and things like that, and whereas the what does it mean to be a Democrat, right? You do your voter registration. Here in Missouri they don't even have party affiliated voter registration, and otherwise it's just a bunch of private clubs, which in 2016, like in places like the Midwest, was run by kind of like boomer feminists and their henpecked husbands. But like that generation is going. So like there's a lot of things. And the Democrats, they kind of fuck themselves as well because of the gerontocracy. Like the Republicans regularly mau each other, right? Which means that they have this like all these young people coming into like this cadre of young people. Whereas like the Democrats, like they're like, I don't know, it's gooning politics. They like try and hold on for as long as possible, but when they die, there's a huge explosion of all these like new young people to come into it, and it's like the gap between what the boomer, like Israel Palestine is not a divisive issue amongst Democrats, right? Yeah. Like everybody hates Israel to a certain degree. Like you have like throw them into the sea because they're Polish colonizers, and they're like, we need a two-state solution, but the big obstacle is Netanyahu, all within the same coalition, all within the Democratic Party. So like the leadership that is like the party, which is like by and large sympathetic to Israel, is just out of touch. And the same is going to happen to the Palestine issue is really just, it's kind of like a litmus test issue. It's like a symbolic issue. It's like, it's like the trans issue in a way. It's like it's symbolic of so many other things.
This is why I don't want one criticism I don't quite get with Mamdani is he gets called third worldist a lot. Zoran. Now, part of it might be to do with his father. I know, but
Sure.
it seems like he just gets called a third worldist because he's publicly sympathetic to the Palestinians, and Palestine is like coded as third worldist, while Israel is coded as your pro-West. So then it gets played into this kind of Huntingtonian clash of civilizations kind of thing. And I think that's why a lot of anti-Mamdaniism from like certainly from the right and like certainly from like pro-Zionist types come.
Well, the right is looking for one. Like I think the problem is like Mamdani hasn't crashed and burned yet, right?
Yeah.
He was able to balance the budget, and you know they can whinge about, well, he got money back from Albany, but it's like, yeah, people don't care about that. He balanced the budget. He froze the rent. He did the potholes. He did these things, right? So they're looking for a purchase to attack him. And if you notice, Ralph, there's actually two lines of mutually exclusive criticisms of him. The first line, which you get from the sexiest woman in media, Batya Ungar Sargon, is like they're all white elite gentrifying overeducated professionals.
Yeah.
And then at the same time it's like, oh, and then you've got Matt Walsh who's whinging about, oh, it's all third world, importing the third worldist sectarian nonsense. And I think that's because the right has not been able to come down on a critique of, because like, what is the Trump administration, if not the most third worldist administration in US history? Like you have Trump loves the Arabs because he has the taste of a Gulf Arab sheikh, right? You have like Marco Rubio pursuing his third worldist vendettas over Cuba and Latin America. You have like the Israel lobby who want to drag the US into like a sectarian conflict in the Middle East, in a civilizational war between like Judaism and Shia Islam. And you have Dr. Mehmet Oz running around fucking Glendale trying to hunt down Armenians.
Like corruption in like new ways that are new to America.
Innovative corruption, yeah.
He's getting IRS to just pay him a stipend.
Yeah. It's like this is like the most third worldist administration that is like that. There's like loads of examples of things.
Or the Venezuela thing. After obviously he did the Operation Venezuela, and then Trump wanted his kickbacks from the Venezuelan oil through Qatari bank accounts and all that.
It's like he's like Trump's like way more Idi Amin than like. Yeah, so it's like, and also like even like the rhetorical discourse of it, like where they mobilize like Protestant sectarianism, like they didn't put the Mormons on the Christian list within the military. Like this is like Trumpism is like
that was the most base thing that they ever did. Those guys are insane heretics.
I full support, right, to not counting Mormons as Christians. Don't indulge them. But the point is like, you know. When people like Matt Walsh talk about third worldism, these are the characteristics that they mean when they say third worldism: corruption, sectarianism, you know. But these are all the things that they practice, right? And they like, right? They like all this third world. They reject the universalism. So I don't think the right has been able to like come down on this criticism. Like third worldism, he's third worldist because he's brown, right? Or it's like DSA are all like overeducated out, and they're not the real working class.
Yeah. That's Batya using her former woke intersectional language for right wing.
Isn't she one of those people that like October 7th really changed her?
She's an October the 8th Jew. Right?
Yeah.
October the 8th Jew, like Daria Lisa is an October the 8th Muslim, you know.
Well, speaking of October the 8th, is the future of British politics moving towards technocracy, populism, or something else entirely? And 10 years after Brexit, what does taking back control actually mean in practice?
Mass executions.
The dogs were doomed. Nothing's good is ever going to happen. Don't worry about it. Pass.
It's so unpredictable. Like Britain is like I'm going to use the word again, is chimping out, right? And it's complete. Like 1 minute, like
I'm more offended by chimping out than the N word.
what's
It's
wrong?
you know why I don't like it. I'll tell you why I don't like it.
Why?
I'll stop you right there. It's a way of casually putting the hard R on and being cute about it. It's like, nah, just we're better than that.
Is there like a racial?
Yeah.
undertone?
Yeah, really? There's no racial undertones of chimping out.
I think it's a racial overtone.
Is
Yeah.
it? Is
Yeah.
it? Is it?
Wait,
racial?
is Gene genuinely ignorant here?
Yeah, like
Well, it's
I
like
didn't
this
know.
guy was getting mad at me for saying spooks as an intelligence.
Oh yeah, I mean
That's-
that's not a racial slur that
hey,
anyone's used for
That's
like 80
different.
years.
That's different. But
No,
I'm
Chimping
sorry,
out-
I'm sorry, I'm not up with all the racism things.
You
Chimping
are.
out was invented in
and
like
and the
early
difference is
2010s.
the way people are trying to say it is in this way where no, I'm making fun of this guy, this kind of horrible individual
Who?
that shot a man while he was late to go to court for running out on a bill.
Who's
And then
this?
you without doing it, you're making that dude way more important than he has to be.
Which dude?
You know what?
Or is
Never
it that?
mind.
Is
You don't
it,
know anything about chimping out.
Is it that
Yeah.
influencer who goes around
Yeah.
like black
Chuck the
neighborhoods?
Builder.
Oh no,
That's
I
what
got
the-
it. I got
the-
it from what's his name from Haz. You know
Oh.
the I am a Mongol.
Oh, okay.
You know the Haz.
Well, but you know
You
what?
know what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
even
I am
better.
chimping out because
I
I
am
am a
chimping
human.
out. Yeah,
I am chimping out. Yeah, that's where I heard it.
That's where you heard it. Okay. But it's just convenient that in 6 years you never said it, and all of a sudden you say it when.
Yeah, because I
Chuck the
love that
Builder-
video.
Very convenient.
I-
But I think we're better than that as far as our racisms. We don't have to be cute about trying to have the hardest of ours.
Is that now like the hardest of ours? I have
Yeah.
no idea.
Yeah.
I have no
Yeah.
idea.
Yeah.
No idea that's the hardest of ours.
Yeah. And then if I
It's
sit here
like-
and giggle along, then I get to be, the chimp that giggles along with being.
Is it?
called a
Is
hard R.
are you guys messing with me?
No.
no, unfortunately not. Chimping out is actually really bad.
Oh,
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
Man, I just hear it. all
Jane,
the
there
time.
is a long historical racism involved in reducing people of the African diaspora to simians.
Yeah, no, I get that, but like you could never like monkeying
Gene,
about.
it's time
Is
for
that
your
racist?
like woke struggle session. We're gonna be here. We're gonna be like
You get a rogue struggle. Well, anyway,
like 4
yeah,
hours
just
getting
say-
lectured.
I mean, oh, the
You know,
only other
just
one I could
say
think
the
of-
word. If that's the case, just say the word.
Well,
Just
I
say
have
it.
no idea what.
Just say it. Say, hey, instead of just being all niggery, just say it.
Well, what's the
Say it with your
spazzing
whole
out? Can
chest.
we say that anymore?
Say you
Yeah.
say whatever the hell you want to say. You're a grown ass man in America.
But they,
Apparently-
whatever is happening in Britain, Britain is having a nervous breakdown because there's no direction to whatever. Like 1 minute you have the Green Party winning, and everyone's like, "Oh, the Green Party is going to form a new government." The next minute, Reform wins all the council elections, and everyone's like, "Reform's going to be the next prime minister." And then they bring this guy back with Andy Burnham, who is like a career apparatchik. I don't know why anyone thinks he's like a. I think literally it's just his cultural affect of of an accent, like of a northern accent. But like he's just like a career politician who is maybe a little bit to the quote unquote left of Starmer on a few issues, and think that he's going to save the country because they beat Reform in the mayoral in the Makersfield election. So like I don't know how anyone can predict things because British public opinion seems so schizophrenic and like directionless and so desperate that like anything is possible. Like I don't know if Nigel Farage is. People are calling like saying now like Reform is done, but like I've heard Reform is done like maybe like 10 times over the last 10 years. So I don't know. I don't know what Ralph and Stefan think about this.
Were you still in the UK when the vote was about to happen, or had you came here already?
Which the
Brexit.
I was in Iraq when the Brexit vote happened. Yeah, I was in Iraq when the Brexit vote happened.
I was in Athens. That was a great day.
But
It was-
when you were in Iraq and you were watching it go down, what was your first thought?
I was like, how's this going to work? Like, Like I had no idea what the implications were for it. But like in retrospect, it kind of marks the death of the Britain that I grew up in, right? Like the Britain that I go back to every year is just not the same place that I grew up in. And I guess that's the same for everybody. You know, you don't grow, you know, countries change over time, but like, it's not a gradual thing. It's just, there's a very stark break after Brexit about how about the vibes in Britain after Brexit. So like a pre-Brexit Britain and a post-Brexit Britain feel like very different places. I feel, you know, look, like alienated a little bit from the UK in that sense. It's just not the same place, and the Americanization really is just very weird. It comes off as very weird to me. Do you get what I mean?
But do you think that certain racial elements, like we were talking a little bit off air and a little bit on air, you know, because you've physically have experienced people being, you know, racially offensive to you. Do you think that's gotten worse post Brexit?
I mean, I think a lot of the like Stefan pointed out, like you've got casual racism and ideological racism, right? Like I usually got like the wrong racial abuse, so it was always very kind of funny to me, right? So like I've been called a chink, and I've been called a dirty Turk, which at least is pretty close, but like, you know, but you know, like a pedo Muslim, it's like, okay, man, like whatever.
Wow.
But like that's always been the case, right? I mean, some of it isn't even malicious. People will go to me like, because my mom's Welsh, they go, "Oh, you're a half caste," which I guess is like racially insensitive, right? But that wasn't even malicious. That's just what people would say, you know, like, "Oh, you're like
we say halvesy, like you're
halvesy." Yeah, whatever, like that kind of thing. But like I don't know, it feels, at least because I grew up in the 90s and 2000s, like that's when I remember. I probably don't remember, like there was probably a lot more like overt political racism in the early 80s, which I don't really remember. And then so like in the 90s and 2000s, it was like, obviously there was racism. The BNP still existed. I remember, I think they won like some European Union seats back in the day. There was a big kerfuffle in the 1990s when they won something in Dagenham, if I remember correctly. You know, there were racial incidents like the Stephen Lawrence a murder of a black teenager in London, which was like dragged on for years. But like after 2016, especially, the level of like ideological stuff that just wouldn't have been said, even if it was believed, is just like, it's like a qualitatively too different. And the irony is, obviously, a lot of this shit has been said by like brown Asians, you know, or black people like Kenny Braddock, right? Kenny Braddock. So it's like a very surreal and weird like shift in the tonal discourse. Maybe for Stefan and Ralph, because they're, you guys are about 10, 12 years younger than me. That shift isn't quite as like jarring, but for someone who grew up in the 90s and 2000s, it's kind of like a big discourse shift.
Did the low culture, we've been talking about the US as well and how it has influenced British pop culture. Did the low culture of America in 1990s affect British as well? Like funny, racist humor, sexist humor. Did that infect your media as well?
In what sense?
Like, were you guys getting, did you find that the humor that was coming out, or the cultural production that was coming out of the UK?
Well, I think as you said, Jason, earlier on the show, from watching that film, I think British people were always pretty good at doing humorous racism. We needed the American influence to get that stuff done for ourselves. A funny thing, a really interesting thing that shows the difference. I'm not sure what it shows, but it shows something. And maybe Gene or Ralph will have something more to say on this and what it shows. But with the Stephen Lawrence case, what's very interesting about this compared to the United States is the mother of Stephen Lawrence, who I'm sure, as far as I was aware, was just a black working class woman, was given in the end a baronet, and she was sat in the House of Lords. She's now a lord of the United Kingdom for the advocacy around her son, which I can't imagine. Like, well, there's just no equivalent to it in the US, but it's this very interesting thing, as if like the US, like imagine if the Senate was appointed in the United States, and then like the family of a murdered black person in the United States, they were made like an appointed senator.
Like Emmett Till's mom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's quite a bizarre thing to think about.
What are you talking about? They made Erica Kirk like head of the Air Force education or something.
They did.
Yeah.
But
but that doesn't count because she was already elite, right?
Mhm.
This was someone who was not in any way elite, completely the reverse of being elite. You know, the most pressed upon group in the United Kingdom, especially in the 1990s. Then they made her a baronet.
Ralph, you've been black for a minute now. Has racism changed post Brexit? Are the R's softer?
That's hard to say.
Mhm.
I don't think, because after Brexit there was this poll that said that had a majority of people didn't think you needed to be white to be considered English, right? And I think especially there's been a lot of this around the England football team, right, in those years that showed that, you know, because the England football team has a lot of black players and mixed race players, that this shows that Britain has, you know, evolved on race I think certainly ideological racism is still there within like the official culture, right? There's still, like we've discussed before, around Muslims or Pakistanis, there's still like ideological, politicized racism. It's still there. But, you know, as I think, you know, as with all things, some things remain the same, some things got better, some things got worse.
What got worse?
Yeah, like for you, like growing up, did you get the gene treatment, or did you grow up in a better neighborhood than you?
No, I grew up better.
I grew up in a perfectly fine neighborhood, but like when you go to town, I'm in Hull, so like there's not much you could do about that. You know?
Well, also I also grew up like all over the place because my dad worked in the Foreign Office, so it's a bit different. It's a lot different.
Rolling Stone, your papa was, huh?
But I mean, like, there definitely has been a change in the tone of British politics, right? Like, it feels very like it's very pessimistic. It's like a very It's like like throughout the 90s, like the big political scandals of the major years, for example, were like like David Mellor dressing in a Chelsea outfit, banging his mistress.
Well, also like Chokey Wank Deaf.
Yeah,
sorry?
Chokey. What's his name? What was his name? Barrymore.
Chokey wank death?
Yeah.
What does that mean? Someone got choked while they were jerking off? And
No. Also erotic asphyxiation.
There was like a lot. What's his name? I remember. Do you remember Dennis Pennis? There's like
name.
The Dennis Pennis. He's the magic guy, and he played the role of the magic guy in Game of Thrones. But he used to do a comedy show where he pretended to be American and asked politicians things. And he went up to Heseltine and asked him, "Is it true that your MPs are getting more women into labor than Tony Blair?" Because like it was like all sex scandals. There was the salmonella egg botch up. It turned out Edwina Curry was having an affair with John Major all the time as well. So that's like, but like, and then when Labour elected, there was like everybody said, the cool Britannia thing. It was kind of optimistic time, you know, like, and then like, yeah, things got grim.
I mean, in 2024, Starmer came to power along with Rachel Reeves, and they spent the first 3 months of their premiership being like, everything's shit. It's fucked. There's no money. Nothing's ever going to get better. Get ready for it, lads. And then we're really surprised when they went down to like negative 40% in approval rating. People believed them that the situation was fucked. It was like, well, fuck you. But they seemed to genuinely surprise the political class.
So it's funny. Though it's funny that for the most of my life, like as far as like prime ministers are concerned, it's been very unstable. Because we used to mock Italy for this, but
Mhm.
Britain has become like Italy in this sense that it is a revolving door of prime ministers, because it's now got to the stage where it seems like the days of David Cameron and Tony Blair's like the golden years of
Oh
stability,
God, it's so scary.
political stability.
So are you guys worried about the future of Britain?
I'm not really worried about it because I'm sure it's doomed. Like I don't worry in the sense that I know it's going to get worse.
Yeah.
Like if things got better, that would be lovely, but I don't expect it to happen. It doesn't worry me. Like it doesn't like. Cause I think worry has an element of like uncertainty. Well, I'm absolutely certain about the grim fate of this country.
It's like you like.
This is the real Anglo pessimism.
Yeah, this is the what's his name. It's like every so often I look to see if maybe I'm going to try and find a job back in the UK. I want to go back to the UK. I'd like to get, but you look at the higher education sector, and it's just like getting smashed and smashed, and like every other sector is getting smashed, right? Like
in a similar way that you're dealing with here in the States, or a little different.
I mean, it's more extreme
in the UK.
There's like really, really bad wage compression in the UK because our minimum wage is actually really quite good. But then, like, you'll have like the bar staff will be paid like $12.54 say an hour. That's in pounds, so it's quite good. That's like $15, $16, $17, $18. But then the bar manager, because of wage compression, will be paid like £13. And then you have to really, really go up the scale. Like there's like loads of professionals who earn like 40 grand a year. Or even less than that.
Yeah, it's like you can earn like 30 to 40 grand a year. You can find a 30 to 40 grand a year job, right? And then everything above that like is like 90, 100, 200, like is like really high. There's nothing in between. There's nothing in between. So like you have this huge gap. There's no intermediaries between like the working and like lower middle classes and like the upper middle class and like and you can see it in professionals. Like the street that I grew up in, when we moved there in the 80s, like everybody who worked on that street was like maybe a lawyer, a doctor, or a university professor, some kind of profession. Like now all the people on that street are all in like sales, construction, finance, right?
There's this insanely large parasitic part of the UK economy, which is sales. And there surely can't be so many like sales inefficiencies that they could possibly justify their existence. But it's seemingly a massive amount of money of the British GDP is spent on the financial services of just arranging sales between companies or between persons and companies.
A good way of mapping out the decline of Britain is look at Premier League football teams like 20 years ago. Look at all the sponsors they had and compare it to what they have now. Back then, they had a diversity of like phones or like telecoms or like, different types of industries. Whereas now, most of it's finance, insurance, or gambling.
So, Jason, you'll like this one. In China and several other East Asian countries, they can't advertise gambling in any way. It's completely illegal. And so what the Chinese do is they'll instead buy advertising space physically in Premier League stadiums. And then when those Premier League games are showed in China, they have to show these adverts, not like as an advert, but as a physical feature of these British stadiums. And these adverts are like they're entirely in Chinese. There's nothing for the British audience at all. They're paying millions of pounds to British companies, not for anything to do with Britain, but just so that they can be physically shown as a physical object on Chinese television.
That's insane. Kind of genius.
Liverpool used to be sponsored by Crown Paints. Like that's how it used to be back in the day. It's just.
I mean, my company is sponsored and owned by the Saudi Public Investment Fund.
I mean, I think Gene said this a few months ago on social media that everything is just porn and gambling, and sadly, everything is just porn and gambling.
I mean,
it's been gambling a long time in Britain though. Like they deregulate.
I have a book about that. Yeah, when they had all those gambling. What do they call them? They had a name for them.
Bookies,
betting shops, and bookies. Yeah, what's his name? I had a friend from high school. He would like as soon as he turned 18, he was like literally just in the betting shop. Like
I mean, I live in a real rural area, so I'm literally 10 meters, I think, from Ladbrokes.
Yeah, there's Ladbrokes everywhere that you go.
My
Oh,
American friend,
okay.
after learning about Ladbrokes, calls them Ladblokes, which is unreasonably funny to me.
Yeah, that is quite funny. That is quite funny. But I mean, like it's like Britain. I think Stefan's right. Like things are getting worse in Britain. The question is like, can the management of that getting worse be dealt with,
Yeah.
and can the ruling elite come to terms with like Britain just not being a significant power anymore? Like,
Yeah, like they're currently trying to redo the British military budget. And Starmer's promised some ridiculous bullshit that we're going to go up to 4% of GDP in military spending. And so the Starmer and the defense minister were trying to arrange this between each other, like how much more money is the army getting? And then Starmer eventually made this ridiculously low offer that would actually like lead to them not being able to do their operational training or whatever. And it shows this like inherent contradiction where the British state is still trying to act as a great power. It's still trying to act on this basis, but they know they don't have the money to do it. So they'll say one thing, but then actually refuse. Like it's not even a thing of like, oh, the evil empire is going to destroy the world by spending £1 billion trillion on the military. They're going to claim that they're going to spend 4% of GDP on the military, but when they actually try and do the sums and see that we're fucked and they can't possibly do that, they're not going to.
Like
and the military.
Yeah, Britain barely has a navy anymore, which is kind of ironic because the empire was built on naval supremacy.
Yeah, we have 2 very advanced aircraft carriers and nothing really much to go with them.
And the aircraft carriers, the electrics are all bust on them anyway. So
Jesus Christ, this sounds like some low.
It's pretty bad. And so and spending on these kind of white elephant projects just makes the situation worse because you're dumping like billions into like things that are just not productive in the economy. So like it's kind of demented at how the British state is behaving. Like there's a saying in England, all fur coat and no knickers. That's the British Navy.
Jason, have you ever heard of the triple lock?
Oh, the old people.
I can't remember what basically it says the triple lock says the UK pension must either rise higher than inflation, higher than wage growth, or higher than some other third thing. Did Ralph or Gene, do you remember what the third thing is?
I can't remember what the third thing is.
Anyway, regardless of what the third thing is, it basically, if you take it seriously and assume it's always going to be that way, and everyone on every side, in every political party that's mainstream says it has to remain as the triple lock, that's a promise to spend 100% of GDP. Oh, that's the other thing. It's GDP growth. Yeah. It has to always rise higher than GDP growth, wage growth, and inflation, whichever one is highest. So that's a promise to eventually spend 100% of the British GDP on pensions, which of course is not a good idea. Oh, that's actually it. Hope is right. It's not GDP growth. It's a default 3%. It has to rise at least 3%. Then if inflation is high, it has to rise higher than that. And if wage growth is high, it has to rise higher than that. And of course, this is completely unviable. In any long-term financial situation, it's impossible, even if the economy does grow. But it's politically impossible to get rid of it. So slowly each year, we drown further and further under it until, it's fucked.
I mean, that sounds kind of frightening.
Yeah, that's why you're having a lot of immigrants. More and more is happening, going to Dubai. Well, that didn't go so well with the Iran war.
Coming to America. Lots of people come to America.
Yeah, or going to Australia.
And it's not even people like really want to leave the country per se. It's just not viable to have a career, right? It becomes like you either strike it lucky. And how do you strike it lucky? It's because you went to an elite university and have connections, right? That's how you do it, right? I have a lucrative side hustle, which I won't talk about on air, but entirely because I know someone from Oxford, right? Like I wouldn't have got the job otherwise, right? Yeah. And that's how things get done, and that's how people advance. But if you can't make it, like people went to Dubai, people go to Australia. That's like I know a lot of people who from my school who just went to Australia for their careers. Like one of my mum's friends, her kids all moved off to Australia and are doing quite well. They're working in sales or whatever it is, making money, because like the opportunities to advance your career in the UK are really, really difficult. I mean, there are some careers that are, but like even being a medical doctor or working for the NHS, like
it's on a junior doctor, you're paid like shit. You're paid like junior doctors. If you include the hours they work and annualize it, they earn less than minimum wage.
Yeah, like doctors are not making money. Nurses, like, and one of the things about the NHS was like, you would work hard, right? But you could get to retire early on like a, there was like a social contract, right, around it. But that doesn't exist anymore.
And they're pushing like retirement ages for prison officers. It's like, what the fuck do you want a 65-year-old prison officer to do?
Yeah,
it's like really, like there's no, and obviously like people are like, well, we'll just privatize the health. It's like that's not going to solve the situation, right? It's like this is like a deeper structural problem in the UK to do with like how it organizes it. Now, I think there's like, I don't know what you guys think, but within a capitalist framework, there are things you could do to improve the situation.
Yeah, and massively. We could destroy our insane planning system. Like, it takes infinitely long in the UK, and it's infinitely expensive to build anything because we have an insane planning system. I think the whole objection system should be destroyed. I think another massive problem is so many businesses are made unprofitable by how much electricity costs in the UK. We need much more electricity. We need the planning system to be destroyed and started from the beginning. And yeah, like even within the capitalist system, Britain is really just like horribly run and just locked in inertia. And the other big thing is that the British state, since 2010, until actually the 2024 budget was when things finally turned around a little bit. But then I think Starmer and Reeves were scared off of it. From 2010 to 2024, capital spending, as in the money that the government spends to actually improve things in the country, to build power stations, to build roads, to build everything else, to build water reservoirs, that was the stuff that was cut first. And so pensions and benefits and stuff was generally maintained, while capital spending was destroyed, which is fine in the short term. In the long term, it absolutely dooms the nation to stagnation and decline.
Yeah, and this is one of the irony is that UK is a net energy importer. We import energy from Norway, from France, which is so ironic because of the whole North Sea oil. And it was funny because when Trump was talking about Starmer and Andy Burnham, he brought up the whole North Sea oil thing, saying, I told them to open the North Sea oil. They've got so much oil, not the way Trump talks about it. And obviously, you can laugh at Trump and say, well, don't you have a strait to bloody open in Hormuz? But whatever. But there is a kind of point there in the sense that the UK is really badly run. The fact that it has to import energy from Norway and all these other places, as opposed to building up its own energy infrastructure. So
yeah, because like some like middle class freaks will like try and kill you if you try and build a wind farm next to them.
Yeah.
Or with HS2, we try to build high-speed rail in the UK, but because it was done under the Conservatives and because it ran its route when it left London up to the north, when it ran its route through all these Tory seats full of poshos, they were like, well, it has to go underground. So tens of billions was spent. That's the thing with HS2. Not a single bit of track has been laid. They're still building the fucking tunnels. They're building the tunnels that they needed to put it underground so it wouldn't disturb the air.
And how long have they been doing this for? It's been like
10 years at least. Yeah.
Well, they were talking about
my entire adult life.
Yeah.
They can't build shit. Like they had to build like an underpass in Hull, right? Like near the.
Gene, they're taking a long time to destroy an overpass by me.
So there's this big underpass that they've done, like so when the people come in from the ship, they can get onto the M52 quickly, right? So like because it was blocking up Central Hull, so it's like literally just an underpass, right? it has been going on building this like underpass for like since 2019, right? Like every year I go back and it's still fucking not being built. And it's just absurd that like you can't build an, like, I get it, maybe a year and a half, it's a big project, it's near the water, you got, but what the hell is going on? So the country is like diabolically run, right? And the infrastructure is absolutely appalling. The only place I'll tell you where I've seen like it get better in the last 20 years is central London. Like when I moved to King's Cross in like 2000, like I was getting like mugged by prostitutes, right? You know, like, but like today, you know, like it's really fancy. There's like, they reopened Houston, you know, the Spice Girls Tell Me What You Want video, like that's at the Houston Hotel. Like that was closed for years. That's been opened up. It's got fancy bars in it. King's Cross was totally renovated. That took like fucking 15 years to do. They shut down Thames. So that's really nice. Central London's really nice. Anywhere else in the country, I don't know. You must stop off at Doncaster quite a bit, Stefan. Like Doncaster is an absolute fucking pit, right? Like it's like you go into Doncaster and like, what is going on here, right? Like that, and I mean, Doncaster was always a bit of a dump, but like it's, and what people don't see, there's all these small towns, like the one that always comes to mind for me is Goole. Have you ever been to Goole?
Like Gould?
Goul.
Oh right, yeah, okay.
Like it's like near Selby. So you like in an area, you'll usually have like one really posh town, right? Where everyone's rich and it's like maybe all the rich farmers are there and there's like services for that and it's all fancy. But then around it, you'll have all these like really weird, like inbred towns where there's no jobs. And like, you know, there's like, I don't know. It's like, I don't know. My vision of like small town England is like, I don't know, people dogging in the car park of a Sports Direct, you know.
This is my local high street.
Yeah.
And incredibly, the article which goes along with this image is Gateshead High Street plan to downsize to help speed up project. So like, whoa, that's a bit too much of a high street there. We should downsize it.
I mean, I live in Reading, which is still within like the orbit of London. So there's the Elizabeth line, which is actually not that bad.
Elizabeth line's one of those success stories.
That's good because, well, what sometimes I do feel I do live in my own little bubble in this part of England. But when I have traveled like up north, that's when you really do see like the decline, the deterioration, like of these like post-industrial towns and cities, which looks so bleak. It's almost like you're going into a different country at times.
It's really, really grim. Like it's like if you go to like town in Hull, right? Hull got devastated in the 70s, so like the economy was totally destroyed in the 70s. But in like the late 90s and 2000s, there was a lot of development. They had these like urban renewal projects. They built all these like shopping centers and stuff like that. Now and so there was like kind of a golden age, which there was lots of small shops. People would go out shopping in town, and like the 1-2 punch of like economic decline and the internet it just absolutely wiped out the town centers. Like, so there's like 3 huge shopping centers in central Hull, and there's just not enough shops to go into them anymore. So like the council you had this like original shopping center that was built sometime in the late 80s, and then they built this new really big development on the marina called Princess Quay, and then like just before the big economic crash in like 2008, they built another big shopping center and redeveloped the train station, and then suddenly everything crashed, and there's just not enough commerce in Hull to like sustain 3 giant shopping centers. And I've seen that pattern repeated. There are cities that have done well, like Manchester and Leeds are like quite nice. Like a lot of banks moved their headquarters up to Leeds. Like they've got like a nice hipster zone in Leeds. Manchester's got a lot of high rise and fancy stuff. There's money in there, but like those are islands. It's like the UK is made up of these like very wealthy islands, and then you have like then you have like the wealthy countryside, but then you have like this massive like deteriorating towns and cities across the country, like the winners and losers. So I guess Leeds and Manchester got picked to be winners. I guess Newcastle did a bit as well, but
like it's all right in central Newcastle.
Yeah, Newcastle's
nice.
Newcastle's okay.
And then you go across the river into Gateshead, where I live, and it's a
dump.
Well, thank you guys.
Did you ever watch Geordie Racer? Have you heard of Geordie Racer? About Gateshead. That's how I learned about Gateshead. It was a 90s kids TV show that they showed in school about pigeon fanciers.
Weird. Thank you guys.
Chat. Who knows the Geordie Racer? I just want to know if anyone in the UK in chat knows about Geordie Racer.
Thank you guys for taking the time to hang out with us today. If you know who Geordie Racer is, definitely leave a comment. Gene will respond. The last time someone left a comment for Stefan, another person that wasn't Stefan responded and had a back and forth with that person. And eventually they said, by the way, I am not Stefan. You will know Stefan because he actually goes by his name on YouTube. And every so often he does respond to people's criticisms, which there's always a lot of. Ralph never responds. He won't ever respond to you.
Ralph's a real one. That's why.
Yeah. He turns all his notifications off.
He's too cool.
Pascal also will never respond to you. Never respond. Do you have any final words before we leave, Pascal?
This has been a very interesting and informational program. I appreciate our friends from across the pond talking to us about the impending doom of their nation.
Thank you very much. And let's leave with a cartoon collage that was put together by Gene Bajlan.
Which one?
This one.